Happy holidays everyone! For this wintry season, we're going to be headed to Sinnoh for part 7 of the complete story of Pokémon Adventures, with this one covering Diamond and Pearl. We're going to be seeing a brand new trio of dex holders, a new evil team, and of course, many cool moments. Personally, I'm really hyped for it, so without further ado, let's get straight into Pokémon Adventures, Diamond and Pearl. Around 4 years have taken place since the Emerald Arc, and our story begins within a mansion. A butler by the name of Sebastian drops off an outfit for the little lady of the house, who thanks him, getting ready for a special day. She picks out a perfect pearl for her right hand and a flawless diamond for her left. We now cut to Jubilife City, where the Next Generation Comedy Grand Prix is underway. And starting things off, we have our next two main characters, Diamond and Pearl. The two get ready to begin their skit, with Pearl having everything planned out and sorted. But when it comes time for the punchline, Diamond and his Munchlax have already gotten distracted, much to the crowd's dismay, forcing the two of them to take an intermission. Pearl demands an explanation from his partner, but he says that his Munchlax can't help but be hungry, and he's the same. Pearl's in shambles, knowing they just lost their chance to showcase their talents on the big stage. Meanwhile, Diamond's falling into a food coma. Pearl reminds him of their dream. After seeing a comedy duo from Johto back when they were in nursery school, they vowed that they would also become a comedy troupe, and they've been rehearsing and practicing all these years, asking if he's really gonna back out and break their promise now. But Diamond says no way, so with renewed vigor, the two head off to practice for next month's tournament. Back at the mansion, the ladies finish preparing for her journey. Sebastian's worried for her safety, but she reassures him. Two specially trained bodyguards have been picked out, and they're trainers of the highest caliber. With these two by her side, she'll reach the peak of Mount Coronet with no problems. The two bodyguards are identified by their red and green scarves, so she'll have to keep a lookout for them. The lady sets out for her journey, but she's not alone, as in her case lies Pokeballs and Pokedexes. And her Pokemon of choice is Piplup. Over with Pearl and Diamond, Diamond's already starting to get tired from his cheeks being slapped in their skits, but Pearl insists that they can never be too prepared. The comedy producer then interrupts them to reveal they actually won the Special Merit Prize, this being a travel coupon and a letter, which they need to take with them on stage. The duo rush back to the building, but crash into Professor Rowan and his aide. Rowan lectures the two boys, who apologize and run off. Rowan's only just returned back to Sinnoh, and he didn't expect things to be so busy already. But it works out perfectly for his aide, as it allows her daughter to slip into the crowd and leave for a journey. After all, she's part of the Burlitz family, whose tradition is to climb Mount Coronet and create an emblem of the materials there. But that's not all, as she's also agreed to gathering data for Professor Rowan by filling in the Pokedex. The bodyguards then appear swiftly and receive their letter mission from their clients. Back with Diamond and Pearl, they open their travel coupon, but the information inside doesn't seem very tourist-like. With their destination being the peak of Mount Coronet, their mission being bodyguards, and their compensation being 10 million, which is 1, super far away, and 2, even more money than the first place prize. The producer's confused why they're so hyped, since this was just meant to be a bike tour around Sanjin Park. The arranged time for meeting comes around, and the lady lets out the other two Pokemon in order to greet them, these being Turtwig and Chimchar. She tells the two Pokemon that they can pick their partner when they arrive, giving them both Pokedexes. And right on cue, the gentleman in a green and red scarf appear. Diamond's confused why their supposed holiday seems like a mission, but Pearl reveals they're probably being featured on TV and are gonna get jumped with cameras that will try to capture their reaction to being tricked. But instead of cameras, they get jumped by Pokemon. The Pokedexes begin beeping and Diamond catches a glimpse of a lady, viewing her as a princess. In all the movement, they manage to disturb a bunch of Starly, who begin attacking them. The lady commands that they drive them away, and after half an hour of struggling, they succeed. The lady's in shock at their skill level, thinking there might have been some sort of mix-up, but she chalks up her suspicions to them being able to blend in as friends on an outing. She asks them for their names, acknowledging them and then preparing to leave. Pearl demands to know her name too, but she reveals she was told not to reveal her name to commoners, which Pearl is understandably not too happy about. And like so, our ragtag group of dex holders set off on their journey through Sinnoh. leaving the bodyguards confused as to where their client is. Pearl and Diamond now find themselves inside a hotel room. Whilst Diamond's busy snacking away and watching his favorite TV show, Pearl's just trying to figure everything out. First off, they have something called a Pokédex. Secondly, they have new Pokémon joining their group. And lastly, the Pokédexes all beep when close together. Diamond tells Pearl that he's been saying something's up this whole time, but Pearl isn't talking about the trip. Instead, he's talking about the lady. She refuses to tell them her name, and even though she's meant to be their guide, she orders them around all the time, even bringing them to this fancy luxury hotel. So now he's determined to find out what her secret truly is. And to do this, he set up his chatbot Chatler to go spy on her. Chatler finds the lady in her room, speaking with Sebastian on the phone. He overhears the words lady as well as protect, but before it can return, it spots some lurking shadows. Pearl and Diamond rehearse their skits, and Pearl nicknames his Chimchar Chimler, liking how fast it is, especially compared to Diamond's slow Turtwig, which he nicknames True. Suddenly, they hear a scream from the lady's room, rushing to see what happened, and what they find is a ton of Bidoof eating everything. Pearl notes that the length of their teeth is way longer than the one in their deck's image, but now's no time to be a detective, as the lady is under attack. Pearl does his best to fight the Pokemon, but his attacks do nothing, leading to him getting trampled by the Stampede. They begin chasing Diamond, and he comes up with an idea after seeing their rampage, leading the Bidoof to the elevator. Pearl takes the steps up and follows them, finding the Bidoof eating a statue. He asks how they managed to get the Pokemon to chill out, and Diamond explains that the Pokédex says that these Pokemon chew to stop their teeth from getting too long. In this case, they ended up getting lost from their usual location, finding the hotel and leading to things going the way they did. The only thing that could help them reduce their teeth size, however, was the metal statue that Diamond saw on the roof. So as he puts it, he didn't battle them, but he defeated the Bidoof and the loser has less tooth, making the lady laugh. Pearl asks her if she giggled, but she says she didn't. He then notices that this statue was made out of solid gold, so they should probably stop the Pokemon from eating it. After all, they don't have the funds to pay for this. The lady insists that they shouldn't worry about that, as after all, she owns the hotel. And Chatler starts shouting, "Lady protect." Back with the OG bodyguards, the two are realizing that the situation isn't going as it should be, so they need to lock in and find the lady themselves. And speaking of, she's setting off with the gang on their journey. Although she was worried about her bodyguards before, they've proven to be effective. But how effective they really are, they're gonna have to show here and now, as Luxio appears before them. And although it growls at them menacingly, it chooses to run away. Pearl and Diamond begin their rehearsal, and the lady wonders if they're training. After all, it always ends up with Diamond getting hit. Pearl says that it's not that bad, which Diamond begs to differ. He explains that the hitting during the punchline creates a rhythm, which increases the intensity and encourages his partner. And as he explains it himself, being punchlines from the heart, which is a crazy way of justifying violence, but we move on. Out of the grass, Luxio appears again, but this time it grabs the lady by her scarf and leads her to its pride. Pearl immediately notices that it's the only one being aggressive, meanwhile the others are watching like it's a show. Diamond prepares for battle, while he's way too slow to be able to do anything. But Luxio roars to his pride, but they don't show the same kind of affection, which Pearl takes note of. Now it's Pearl's turn, and with the help of the Pokédex, he realizes the issue. Luxios communicate with electrical pulses in their forepaws, creating a form of rhythm, just like him in his hitting. And since this Luxio's claws are way too short, it can't communicate properly. He speaks to the Pokemon and says that he'll help it out, grabbing it and having it connect with the others. The rest of the Pride understand its message, allowing it to join back into the pack, thanking Pearl and taking its leave. In the background, Lady starts slapping herself in the face, much to the confusion of everyone else. But when questioned on her actions, she once again lies on her answer. Although she won't say it aloud, she's having a great time traveling with the group, and now they finally reached the Auraberg Gate. As for the bodyguards, they've reached the hotel and learned of what happened there. Our heroes pass through the Auraberg Gate to enter into the city, spotting the coal mine. Because of it, everything in the city feels super hot, so Diamond offers all the Pokemon a drink, but the prideful Piplup refuses. The group then prepare to find a place to stay, but a bulldozer comes their way, forcing Piplup to save them. A construction worker appears, telling off his Psyduck for playing around in the bulldozer. He apologizes to the group and asks if he can make it up to them somehow. And Lady wants to look inside the coal mine, wanting to go touch coal and dig it up with her own two hands. Pearl asks what she's doing, but as expected, she assures him she was doing nothing. The worker agrees to show them around, and Pearl says that they'll go find a place to stay while she enjoys herself, which she can't help but be grateful of, as after all, if they're letting her go by herself, it must be safe. Inside the hotel, Diamond is worried about leaving Lady alone. After all, she keeps getting attacked by wild Pokemon. But Pearl reassures him that she'll be fine. After all, Piplup stopped a bulldozer with just a bubble attack, meaning it's been hiding its true strength. In the end, they decide that they'll still go to the mines, as Pearl wants to use it as a setting for their next skit. Meanwhile, the worker explains everything about the mine to the lady, but she has a question regarding the massive hole in the wall. He says that it's nothing that important, but he gets interrupted when his Psyduck tries to drive the bulldozer once again. Lady hears a musical sound coming from within the hole, heading down it and finding a swarm of Kricketot and Kricketune. Piplup rushes to the rescue, and Pearl arrives just in time to see the Pokemon taking its foes by itself, but not without a heavy struggle. Pearl asks if her Piplup was feeling ashamed of not having joined the battles before, and she confirms this is the case, hence why Piplup's trying so hard to fight now. The worker then arrives and apologizes for the trouble. He explains that their foreman Roark had the idea to build a Pokemon training ground. However, running out of stamina in this battle has hurt Piplup's pride. Lady wants to help the Pokemon get back on its feet, and the worker proposes that she participates in a gym battle. So she asks if Piplup's interested, which it 100% is. Lady asks which hotel they picked out, but to Pearl's surprise, the deluxe celebrity suite that he picked out is only classified as a low-class one in her eyes. An alert then comes through that Roark has arrived back to the mines. He thanks everyone for their hard work whilst he was away visiting Eterna and Canalave City, but now he's ready to accept any gym battle, offering Lady the chance to battle the day after tomorrow. As for Diamond, he's still lagging behind everyone. The next evening, Diamond and Pearl wait in the lobby for the lady, and once she arrives, they all stop their beeping Pokedexes and prepare for a hardcore training session. Pearl is up first and is Chimla vs Piplup. Daya asks Pearl if they're the right people to teach Lady, but Pearl explains that he admires determination, and after seeing Piplup's passion, he knows that he has to help it make its dreams of victory come true. Lady already knows the basics of Pokemon type matchups, especially since she used to read 10 books a day, and now she's ready to put what she learned into practice. The trio continue training, and Lady notes how lucky she is to be trained by professionals. Another day passes and it's finally time for the gym battle. The statue in front of the gym explains the rules, being a 2 Pokemon battle with switch-ins. But before she can fight Roark, she has to fight the gym trainers. As for Diamond and Pearl, since they call themselves coaches, they have to get kicked out of the gym, especially because they could be giving advice during the battle. So they're gonna have to watch the battle through the window. By the time they're set up, Lady's already made it to Roark. The battle begins with Cranidos vs Piplup, and although she has a type advantage, Cranidos is carrying Shockwave, which makes things a lot harder to deal with than originally planned. Roark goes for the switch, and so does Lady, making the next battle Onix vs Ponyta. Onix lands a double edge, and with its ability Rockhead, it takes no recoil. It then unleashes Stealth Rock, which is really going to be bad for Piplup, finishing Ponyta off with a slam attack. Piplup comes out, and even though the Stealth Rocks land, it goes for the kill and takes down Onix. Now it's Cranidos' turn, and things are looking really dicey, especially with it using Double Team. He tells Pearl what's happening, so he shouts that if she loses, she'll owe him 1 million. The statue tells the duo to stop making noise, and Pearl gets an idea, performing their comedy routine right there, and this time talking about Pokemon names, putting emphasis on Wobbuffet wanted Wurmple's water, and Plusle pulsed with energy, and ending off with Cranidos confused Clefable. Lady catches on to what they're hinting, commanding Piplup to attack. Roark isn't going to let her though, commanding Zen Headbutt, but instead of landing its attack, instead attacks itself. Roark quickly notices that it used Water Pulse, and with his Pokemon down, he accepts defeat, giving victory to Lady and Piplup. For her efforts, she receives the Coal Badge, and her Piplup's pride is restored. Pearl and Diamond congratulate her win, and she thanks them for all the help. However, she has one question. When they enter the gym, Pearl could predict the attacks the Pokemon were going to use, and Diamond explains that Pearl can sense what moves are coming by the Pokemon's movement, something he picked up from his father, who left when he was young. He was an incredible trainer, and the training regimen that they gave Lady was based on what Pearl remembered from his father's one, with Lady treating his skills as a family legacy. However, since she won this fight, it means she doesn't have to give away the 1 million fine if she was going to lose. After seeing all this cash, Pearl decides he's going to take a nap, as well as the fact he was carrying Diamond on his shoulders for the whole match. Lady wonders why he would strain himself, and Dia explains that he's super stubborn and definitely not a quitter, with both of them stating that he's tough, harder than any stone. A new day rolls around and the gang prepare to head to Floroma Town, which is covered in flowers as the name suggests. Lady wants to visit a shop, but Diamond and his team smell something nice, rushing over to a tree trunk that's covered in honey. But in order to reach this delicious honey, they had to break through a fence. In other words, they stole and trespassed. And someone isn't too happy about it, as a young girl reveals she put honey on the tree to feed the combi there. The Pokemon all attack the gang, and Pearl knows Lady would have something snarky to say about this situation, so he tells Chatler to tell her to stay put in the shop. Pearl tries to make up for their mistake by showcasing their comedy skills, performing it and successfully making the girl laugh, but she says she still can't forgive them. Even worse, the girl's dad is said to be on his way, and his Drifloon appears in the distance. However, the Pokemon is injured, carrying its trainer's coat. The girl says her father works at a job at the Valley Windworks, so Diamond and Pearl prepare to go see what happened. Lady meets up with them halfway and they tell her what's going on, and she's amazed by their willingness to help others, even though they're already helping her. When they arrive, the power of the windmills are going full blast, in a way never shown before. They try to enter, but the doors are locked, so with Chimler's flames, they burn off the lock and encounter their foe, being a Bronzor. Pearl notices a Gyro Ball's incoming, so the group try to run away, which was the right choice as they end up finding the girl's father, but he's held captive by a lady who clearly thinks she's Spider-Man. Pearl begins an attack and the group realize they're trying to steal the electricity. Diamond questions why they would do such a thing, with the lady saying it's for fun, something Diamond can't agree with. The lady asks what do they consider fun, and Diamond comes up with the idea to showcase their routine. But before they can even get to the punchline, the lady guesses the answer, finding the whole thing to be a ton of fun, but also revealing she's never heard of a comedy routine. Now that she's bored, she decides to open the window, blowing wind mixed with Bronzor's sandstorm. The sand starts pushing everyone, and they link arms getting carried out. But Diamond and the girl's father are still stuck inside the building, but if they can't open all the windows at one time, they're bound to get buried alive before they can find them. The girl then hears that the combi are nearby, even though there's no flowers. Pearl realizes this must be because Diamond's there, and sure enough he's right, as the Pokemon are lured by the smell of honey. Chimler then burns a hole in the window, saving everyone. The evil lady is disappointed that they got free, but she managed to get all the electricity they needed, cutting the wind turbine and somehow turning it into a vehicle. Before she goes, she says the next time they meet, she wants to hear another comedy routine, but make it even funnier. Later on, the father thanks the group, surprised that Dia would attempt to make a comedy routine in the face of a villain. I'm probably pronouncing his nickname wrong since you say Diamond, but it's easier to say Dia, so that's what I'm gonna do. Pearl explains that he just communicates like that, and since the lady watched it and listened, maybe she's not all that bad. The girl says that he's nice, with a heart as big as his stomach, and Pearl agrees, saying for the whole time he's known him, he's never seen him get mad once, being full of good intentions and kind thoughts. A real pearl of wisdom. The next stop is Eterna Forest, where everything's super gloomy. Diamond got a notebook from the little girl about a show he loves to watch, but more importantly, the guidebook also mentions Eterna Forest, being a long trek with no place to sleep, something Lady overhears. Pearl takes Diamond away to discuss what they're gonna do, as after all, they've been staying in 5-star hotels this whole time. But luckily, they find a mansion with some people, who suddenly disappear. Lady then appears, amazed by the chateau. She heard them say that there was nowhere to sleep, but she chalks it up to them wanting to surprise her. So with that, the trio decide to spend the night here at this old chateau. Diamond and Pearl find a place to be creepy, but at least they have a place to stay. For now, Dia has to prepare a tea and snack for Lady, but they feel an odd shadow behind them. Yeah, so it turns out this mansion's filled entirely with Ghastlies, who attack with electricity. Also, it would seem, what actually attacked them was something in the middle of the Ghastlies. The Pokédex can't pick up what it is, and their Pokemon can't land an attack on it due to how fast it is. The ball of plasma darts from appliance to appliance, and Diamond gets an idea. Pearl starts getting overwhelmed by all the Ghastly, but suddenly it all stops, and the Pokemon disappear. He then finds Dia in a room and the ball of plasma in the TV. Diamond explains that the TV is the Pokemon's home. After all, the people outside were the villains from the show he watches. In other words, the plasma must like TV, and thus dressed up as one of the people it saw on TV. So all they had to do was make it return back to the TV. Lady then appears, asking what happened to her tea and food, which Diamond gives her, being a gâteau. He hands one over to Pearl too, saying what's a chateau without a gâteau, which makes Lady laugh, and I'm sure by now you get the gist of how this goes. The next morning, the group prepared to leave, and Pearl wonders if the plasma was a ghost or a Pokemon, but that's an answer they're gonna have to learn in the future. In Eterna City, we find a lady enjoying the lovely aroma of the grass, but then she smells something else, being the smell of gas, finding our heroes exiting the forest. She tries to speak to them, but they're too focused on the fact that they finally made it out of the forest. So she trips them up with Grass Knot, asking if they battled a gas Pokemon, revealing her name to be Gardenia. Diamond answers her question, and she says she thought so. After all, they reek of gas. But her confidence flies out the window when she learns that they battled this Pokemon at the old chateau. Pearl assures her that Diamond got the job done, much to her surprise, making Lady proud of their skills. Gardenia also reveals that she's the gym leader of Eterna City, and since they defeated the ghosts, she's happy to accept their challenge tomorrow. Pearl wants to know the plan, but Lady's smelling herself for gas, which Pearl questions her about, but she says she didn't. He reassures her that she doesn't smell, but she cuts him off, saying they should book a hotel so she can shower. So they head to the Eterna Grand Hotel, where Lady's training her hardest. Although she didn't plan on taking on the gyms, doing this will help her in her quest of reaching Mount Coronet. Pearl can't help but assist the damsel in battle dress, so he and Diamond head down to help her train. Since Gardenia is a grass specialist, they need to be ready for a grassy field battle, heading to find one, but spotting a massive statue of a massive Pokemon. They also find a spiked building with grass nearby, so they make it their training ground. Diamond commands the Pokemon in battle. Although dealing with Chimchar is easy, Turtwig's much tougher. Lady then hears a faint sound of someone asking for help, but the others don't hear it. They continue training, and as they do, a blonde-haired lady in black comments on their camaraderie, noticing that all three of their Pokemon are about to evolve, and evolve they do. She tells them their new Pokemon are Grovyle, Prinplup, and Monferno. The others are suspicious of how familiar she speaks to them, deciding to test her by showcasing their comedy routine, which is a perfect success. The lady introduces herself as Cynthia, and she offers some tips to help defeat Gardenia. Cynthia teaches them on how to plan out their attacks, but Diamond sneezes just as Prinplup launches its attack, causing it to miss and nearly hit a building. Luckily, Cynthia's Spiritomb stops the attack from dealing any damage, demonstrating its skills again with True's Razor Leaf. They continue training, and Lady improves quickly to the point that she's already ready to win. Cynthia has one more piece of advice for them, being to visualize the battle before engaging, but also to be ready to outplay your opponent when they outplay you. The group then take their leave, and Cynthia notices their Pokedexes, which is another reason of why she helped them. Now it's time for her own personal mission. The bike shop has been recently attacked, and she heard a voice of help coming from this building. At the Eterna gym, the statue greets them once again, explaining the rules, giving the option of a switch-in, elimination, or double battle, with Lady picking double. Once again, Diamond and Pearl get kicked out of the gym, and find a way to watch, this time being from a tall tree. As for Lady, she prepares to battle Gardenia with Ponyta and Prinplup, facing off against Roserade and Cherubi. However, the gap between the two sides is massive. Gardenia plans to stay a safe distance away due to the fire and ice attacks, whilst being able to maintain her own attacks from afar. She attacks from underground, taking Ponyta out with poison. Prinplup also faces this onslaught of underground attacks, but despite its best efforts, it still can't bridge the gap. Diamond and Pearl want to attempt a comedy routine, but the statue isn't going to let them this time. Meanwhile, we head back to the spiked building, known as the Galactic Building. The bike shop owner is tied up, and amongst him are Team Galactic grunts, who seem to be speaking a different language. Suddenly, the psychic-contained water attack floats up to the window and attacks the grunts, and as soon as they spot Cynthia, they flee. With the psychic grass attack, she cuts the ropes, freeing the bike shop owner. And with her mission complete, Cynthia takes her leave. Back at the gym, Gardenia prepares to finish things off, dropping Prinplup and revealing she's outplayed her. Lady thinks back to the words Cynthia said, as the ground begins to shake, and Blizzard shoots out from the floor, completely freezing Gardenia's Pokemon and winning the battle. Lady explains that if Gardenia can attack on the ground, then so can she, using the holes that were created to land an attack. Gardenia accepts the feat and hands over the forest badge. Once they leave the gym, the bike shop owner thanks him for saving him, as he realized the grass that was left over had some rice on it, specifically from Twin Leaf Town. So as a gift, the next morning the gang each receive a foldable bike. With these bikes, their journey is going to be 10 times faster, but Lady falls off her bike. Pearl suspects that she doesn't know how to ride a bike, but she denies this. Instead of going through their usual back and forth though, Pearl's had enough of her lies, so he's going to teach her himself. Whilst these guys are doing their thing, Professor Rowan and his aide, Mr. Berlitz, have arrived at Canalave City. As it turns out, there's going to be a professor convention going on. Coincidentally passing by them is Roark's father, Byron. Back to the gang, Pearl attempts to teach Lady, but she's too reliant on the info that she's already read. He continues to attempt giving friendly advice, like don't rush, you don't have to fear anything, and that it's okay to cry if it hurts, but her pride won't let her accept it. Eventually, she falls again, scraping her elbow and knee, and even letting out some tears. Whilst Dio wants to get some antiseptic, Pearl reminds him she won't be able to press on if something like this discourages her. Hearing these words, Lady decides she'll practice by herself, leaving the group with a sour note. However, a stunky appears, stinking up the place and causing Lady to lose consciousness, while still on her bike. Pearl rushes to stop her, whilst Dee has to find out where the stench is coming from. Lady's heading straight for an edge, so Pearl has Shimla blast them forward with its fire, but there's not enough road, so to extend their path, they use Primplop's ice beam to create a route just like Red did back in his bike race, saving Lady and bringing her back to consciousness. Diamond finds the cause of the trouble, being a stunky who got mad at all the noise they were making, but this stench is going to last on them for a whole day. Through this traumatic event, Lady's learned how to ride a bike, apologizing for not taking their advice, but now she needs to learn a lesson on how to stop. Whilst these guys are enjoying themselves, a shadowy figure makes her way from Mount Coronaire, opening a Pokeball and unleashing their Haunch Crow. Before he can continue on, he has a package addressed for him, so he needs to sign it, opting to sign it with his own personal pen. And we learn that this no-eyebrowed man is Cyrus, and Team Galactic's boss. The guys arrive at the bike lounge area, and the gang's stench is driving everyone crazy. One of the attendants suggests they try their hot spring, which they agree to, with Lady demanding a back scrub. After their bath, Diamond and the Pokemon notice something outside, being the massively tall Mount Coronaire, and now all they have to do is climb to the top. The wild Pokemon are all attracted by the energy of the mountain, facing towards it. A while passes and the group prepare for their climb. Meanwhile, Cyrus also takes his leave from the other side. And lastly, the bodyguards, who are named Packer on the left and Yuji, who's on the right. These guys have been following them on their bikes this whole time, but for now they have to take a break at the spa. The gang head towards the mountain, but Pearl wants to know why they have to go through a cave. Diamond explains that to reach the peak, they have to start by going through the caves. Only then can they reach the outside path. This is all well and good, but the cave they entered is the one that won't lead them down the right path, something Dia forgot to mention. The group's shouting becomes a hindrance to Cyrus, who came to experience the energy of the creation of the world, telling his Pokemon to prepare to evolve and deal with the ones who disturb this mystical sight. Cyrus's Pokemon jump down in front of the heroes and evolve into a Magnezone and Probopass. The Pokemon immediately attack, causing a rock slide and separating the group. Diamond desperately calls out to his friends, but with all these rocks in the way, finding them won't be easy, especially with a presence looming behind him. Diamond continues searching for Pearl and Lady, shouting out their comedy routine for Pearl to answer. Suddenly, a Luxray appears and headbutts the rocks, freeing a Shinx that was also trapped. It zaps Diamond and reveals itself to be the same Luxio that they met before. With its X-ray vision, it successfully locates Lady and Pearl, allowing Diamond's team to break the rocks and free them. Luxray then shows them the east exit, while it and his pack head to the west. And after a bit more digging, they finally reach their destination. We now cut away to Team Galactic, one of its admins. Right now, the evil team's in search of money, and they have the perfect idea on how to get some, picking out Lady and choosing her as a ransom target. Although they don't have a picture of her, they have her bodyguards, so if they can follow them, they can find her. As for our trio, they need to head down to Route 298 in order to reach Hearthome City, which is unfortunately further from Mount Coronaire, but it's the only way to reach the peak. They arrive at the city's entrance where Baneri is dancing. Pearl offers the Pokemon a berry, but instead it attacks him. He tries to get revenge, but it runs away into the city and into the Super Contest building. Lady notices that Primplop wasn't interested in the Baneri, but instead it's dancing, and she admits that she was too. But suddenly an influx of participants flow through, dragging her away. Pearl finds the Baneri's trainer, being a lady named Kira. She explains that Baneri wasn't trying to attack him, instead it was just practicing its dance routine and he got too close, giving him some glitter powder as an apology and telling him to look to the stage since he'll explain everything. And it just so happens, Lady's also found her way accidentally onto the stage, where they have to dance. But her skills are less than satisfactory. Also, this report is the same one from the bike race back in Kanto, as well as the contest in Hoenn. The crowd's annoyed by Lady's skills, thinking she's just a simple rich girl who thought she could win through money. Lady explains that she ended up here by mistake, but if she's entering, she's gonna win by talent alone. One of the judges tells her that Slough is open tomorrow, and she accepts the challenge. And by 5 AM the next morning, Lady has everyone dressed up, ready for them to start practicing. The group do their best to link up and get the timing right, but it really isn't easy. Pearl respects Lady's will to win, hence why he's helping out, and since she found it on her family name, she has to lock in. The group are then approached by the Pokemon Fan Club Association chairman, who just like usual, enrolls them as honorary members into the Pokemon Fan Club. He takes them all to the club room and gives them a puffin case, which sparks Dia's interest since it's food-wise. Dia immediately gets into making puffins, and he's by every means locked in. Lady's also locked in, watching dance videos of a lady and her Glameow, which just so happens to be Dia's mum. Now it just leaves Pearl. Since the contest is judged by 3 parts, each of them can work together to cover something else. And eventually, the promised time arrives. All eyes are on Lady as she registers, but she isn't bothered a bit by this. Pearl and the chairman head off to find some seats and coincidentally pass by Jasmine. In the dressing room, Lady gives her Pimple up some puffins made by Diamond. But while she does this, a Pachirisu has found its way into her fashion case. Lady's time on stage comes around, but she finds that her case has been messed around with. The first criteria comes around now, and Priblub is looking super cool thanks to his puffin. But Lady begins to panic, realizing that she's been sabotaged. Pearl tells her to focus up and think of something that fits the theme, and with 20 seconds left on the clock, she creates an outfit for Priblub. Now it's time for the dancing round, and although she tries her best, she continues to get sabotaged. A 15-minute break is issued, and Pearl tries to help her out, but she says she can't continue. Pearl's annoyed at her giving up, but Diamond comes to the rescue with something he made, being an original recipe cream pie he made for her. Lady tries some, and Dia tells her that being on stage isn't easy, and he knows since he's done the same. But he reminds her that as long as she's having fun, the audience will have fun too. After finishing it and hearing Dia's words, she decides that she won't quit and heads back out, recalling what she read about contests. They were made so that you could share your Pokemon having a good time with others, and not only them, but the trainers too. And with a spectacular Metal Claw, Ice Beam, and Pet combo, she dazzles the crowd, who notice the amount of fun she's having. The results come through, and in a surprise turn, Lady comes out victorious. Whilst this was going down, over in the Master Rank contest, the well-known Fantina is winning over the crowd herself. It's time to hand out the ribbons, and Lady requests that her friends also receive them, as she couldn't have done it without them. Just like in the gym badges, but at least this time, they're not outside. With a side quest completed, the group leave the building, and Paka and Yuji have finally caught up with them. During their hunt, they've learned about Diamond and Pearl, and they suspect that they could be working undercover for some sort of evil corporation, so they're gonna have to pincer them. But their plans get interrupted by Fantina, who congratulates them on their performance. She can tell that the group is being watched, so she escorts them with Driftblim, leaving Paka and Yuji stranded behind. Fantina takes them to the Lost Tower, and Diamond and Pearl perform a routine, which she finds hilarious. Paka and Yuji are right on their trail though, entering the tower and getting ambushed by Team Galactic. The admin reports that they need 150 million to cover their expenses, but he's gonna hold Lady ransom for 1.5 billion, showcasing what he's been working on. Through the use of a camera and speaker, he commands the other members to find Lady no matter what, so they attack. Paka and Yuji send out their Pokemon to fight back, but despite their skills, they're up against a tough foe. The others hear the noise downstairs, but Fantina tells them that's what always happens, wanting to see another comedy routine. Lady wants to explore the tower, so she gets permission to do so. Downstairs, the battle continues on, and admin spots Lady getting closer. Burmese cloak gets ripped off, but they use its leaf combined with Weasel's tail to destroy the camera and defeat the grunts. Lady is impressed by the battle she just witnessed and heads back to tell everyone about it. Meanwhile, Paka and Yuji opt to take a break, thinking they defeated Diamond and Pearl. Inside the Galactic building, we get the reveal that the admin was Saturn, who's enraged at his defeat. Since they're heading for Mount Coronet, he'll have to attack them at Veilstone City. The other admin from before then shows up too, being Mars. Atop the tower, Diamond and Pearl are tired from all the routines, and Fantina asks Lady if she enjoys battles, which she does, having 2 gym badges under her belt. Fantina offers them her Driftblim in order for them to get to the next town. After all, she has to go back to Hearthome anyway. The group thank her for everything, and Fantina thinks to herself she can't wait to battle Lady. The group fly over to Selassie Town and thank Driftblim for its help. Right now they need to go north then west, so they can continue their journey. But they suddenly hear a camera flash as someone takes their photo, but this culprit runs away. Lady begins to worry as this means they're being followed even with them being disguised as a group of friends. The group chase after the person, realizing that they have arrived at a news station. The door bursts open and a farmer girl throws papers around, featuring the photo that was taken of them. Her father then appears, revealing he took their photo, and he explains he wasn't trying to take a photo of them. Instead, he was trying to photograph what was behind them. These being weird Pokemon that have been flying around everywhere, and they're trying to get a big scoop by catching the first proper photo of them. But Lady just tells them it's an unknown. Pearl thinks she knows this because she's a tour guide, but in truth Professor Rowan told her about it. She asks the farmers if there's a ruin nearby, and after some studying, they learn more info. The farmer gifts Lady some ball seals for her help, and she notices that some unknown are above Dia and Pearl's head. These 2 unknowns are the same ones in the picture, being the D symbol who likes Diamond and the P symbol who likes Pearl. The Pokemon communicate with each other and they drag the trio to follow them. Eventually they read the ruins, where Lady reads the glyphs. They continue deeper into the ruin, and the trio realize that the unknown are pretty much just like them. The D one being more relaxed, and the P one being more hasty. Diamond finds a bunch more unknowns stuck behind a wall, so Pearl suggests breaking it down, but Lady stops him, saying they shouldn't destroy historic landmarks. Suddenly, a giant boulder falls behind them and chases them into a dark room, but they got separated from their fire types, so they can't even see anything. Lady memorized the glyphs from earlier, which fortunately had directions, so they return their Pokemon and search for the exit. They eventually reach the final room, but they've ran out of directions. Lady doesn't want to stop here, especially because she wants to know the secret of the ruins. Searching desperately and tripping on a rock, but Dia helps her, and even the unknown can tell this little kid has a crush. When she tripped, her Pokeball came out, releasing Prinplup and shining a light from the ball capsule. So with this light, they locate more glyphs and Lady reads them out. When every life meets, another life is born, unlocking the door to the other unknown. The torches on the wall begin lighting up, and the doors open, allowing them to reunite with their Pokemon. The group head back into town and find a newspaper that turned their comedy routines into a comic. The farmer asks if they found the ruins, which Lady reveals they did, but when asked about it again, she lies, saying she never said such thing. After all, some things are better kept confidential. In Canalave City, Professor Rowan and his aide finish listening to Joey and Professor Elm, preparing for their own chance to head up on stage. A lady offers them a copy of the news, but Rowan declines. After all, Solaceon Town's news are always preposterous. But this leads to them missing out on a big scoop for themselves. The gang's journey was going good, but they ran into a crowd of Psyduck, so they're gonna have to turn back and detour to Veilstone. Once they arrive at the city, Lady goes to find a hotel, but instead finds the game corner, where she gets roped into hearing the instructions. So after a while, Diamond and Pearl go to look for her, only to find out she's gotten addicted to her winning streak. Pearl saves her from her addiction, and they find a hotel. With the coins Lady won, Dia bought a zoom lens in order to increase their Pokemon's aim. They test it out with Chimler, but a girl ends up running towards their target, causing a massive explosion. Luckily though, she avoids it and charges over towards them. She asks them if they're alright, but they explain that they were testing out an item that helps land attacks. The girl heard a conversation earlier about challenging her with said item, misunderstanding them to be the same people, and formally accepting the challenge at Veilstone Gym, introducing herself as its leader, Maylene, taking her leave and saying that she looks forward to fighting them on Inferno. The group decide to discuss their plans, with Maylene being a fighting type expert and one even younger than them. She's not to be taken lightly, which is very surprising considering these guys are only 12. Diamond and Pearl head outside to meet Lady, and the trio get ready for their usual training session. Since Lady's going to be using Inferno, she needs a Pokemon that's going to be able to link up with it, so Chatler's the best option. Under Pearl's Valsmart tutelage, Lady makes big progress, so all she has to do is recover for the evening gym battle. Diamond and Pearl head off to practice their routines, and now left alone, Lady goes to the one place she can truly feel alive. A raggedy looking man asks her if she's here to play slots, but she can't as she left her wallet at home and promised not to play anymore. The man offers to loan her some coins and brings her into the game corner so that she can bring him some good luck. The end of the day arrives and Lady makes her way over to the others, but she's looking really tired. Pearl thinks that she's been training hard by herself, but we know that's not the case. They enter the gym and the statue greets them, and Lady chooses a switch-in battle with 2 Pokemon. Diamond and Pearl prepare to take their leave, but the statue says that they can stay, as per request of Maylene, but they can't give out any advice. The group navigate through the gym, but Lady's really tired. With the gym trainers around every corner, things aren't looking too good. Eventually they reach Maylene, and Lady realizes that she's lost her Pokedex. Pearl says that she can fight without it, and Diamond offers to go look for it where she last was, whispering the location of the game corner to Diamond. The gym battle begins with Riolu vs Monferno. The 2 Pokemon are very nearly equal, but Riolu has a slight edge. With its Drain Punch, Monferno is beginning to lose. Lady switches out to Chatot, and Maylene switches to Meditite, comboing Chatot with a Psycho Cut and landing a critical hit. Lady counters back with Mirror Move and defeats the Pokemon, so Riolu comes back in for a revenge KO. Monferno's back out and the fighting types begin to brawl again. Maylene reveals that she's jealous of Lady and all the nice things she has, hence why she refuses to lose to her. Dia arrives at the game corner, asking about a Pokedex, which is confirmed to be in the Lost and Found, calling Pearl and telling him that he's found it. When Pearl realizes what happened, he's angry that she broke her promise, especially because she's close to losing after wasting her time playing slots. She tries to tell him that she wasn't playing, but before she can continue, Maylene goes for the kill. Lady tells Monferno to throw away the zoom lens and instead focus past the rocks, where if they line it up correctly, they'll be able to find Riolu's weak spot. Shouting to Maylene that she's just like her, she doesn't need items to win, instead using her own Pokemon's strength and her own abilities. Using her hand and treating the battle like a slot machine, allowing Monferno to go for the finishing blow. Maylene thanks her for the match, recognizing her as a worthy challenger, and Pearl apologizes to Lady for assuming she was playing, when in actuality, she was just learning the quick movements of a slot machine. Just then, the man from before appears, revealing she just watched him play. This guy, by the way, is Maylene's dad, and she's not too happy about his actions. With a new gym badge earned, all they have to do is meet up with Dia, who searches Lost and Found for the Pokédex. But when he finds it, it's taken by Team Galactic. The grunt's super confident in his skills, but ends up slipping on a berry, allowing Dia to take the Pokédex and run. More grunts appear, and over at the main building, Saturn focuses on defeating the bodyguards, who have arrived in Veilstone. Pearl and Lady stroll the city. Lady worries about leaving her Pokédex behind. After all, she needs to collect its data. Pearl's curious about this, as after all, why does a tour guide have such an advanced device? Suddenly, the streetlights turn off, and Lady gets knocked out and kidnapped. Fortunately, her kidnappers are Paka and Yuji, so there's no problem. However, they're not the ones who turned off the lights. Instead, it's Team Galactic, who are on their trail. They hide Lady inside a fitting room and head outside to do their job, fighting against the grunts. Pearl spots the battle going on, and Diamond bursts out onto the scene, as more Team Galactic grunts appear. The two fights end up bringing the four bodyguards together, and Pearl recognizes them from Heartcomb City. But they explain their situation. Their job is to guard the Sinnoh region's richest daughter, and she's no tour guide. Pearl is at complete shock at this, and the bodyguards are surprised they didn't realize this mix-up until now. Anyway, they all share a common enemy, as stated by Diamond. The bodyguards like his attitude, and Paka and Yuji set up the same strategy. This time, Diamond gets involved, adding Razor Leaf, and Pearl helps out by predicting the incoming attacks. Paka and Yuji realize the potential that Diamond and Pearl have, knowing that if they receive professional training, they'd be masterclass bodyguards themselves. They give them directions on how to do combo attacks, and eventually they take victory. And with this professional experience underway, True and Shimla reach their final forms, Torterra and Infernape. The group then flee the area, as being in that location is baiting out Lady's hiding spot. Lady wakes up and tries to find her way out, and Saturn has an idea to use a broken machine owned by another admin. Whilst he's been working on the galactic bomb, the other members have been working on the infernal machine. However, it's currently broken and not complete. He turns the machine on and prepares to lure his foes to their doom. Some grunts are still left over, and Dia realizes that they're like a hive mind, and Paka agrees. Eventually, they arrive at the galactic building, and the guards decide now it's time for Diamond and Pearl to stay back, tying them to a tree and giving them an earpiece, instructing them to command their Pokemon from afar, dropping a satellite dish on their foes. With the use of his camera, Saturn notes now's as good a time as any, activating the machine. Everything begins to rumble, so much that everyone in Veilstone can feel it happening as well, as a massive blast fires, hitting Paka and Yuji directly. Saturn reveals that this energy blast will move the two from this world and imprison them forever. Diamond and Pearl rush over to them and try to break them out, but no matter what they try, nothing works. They tell their new proteges that right now, their time is coming to an end, and although their time together was short, they're proud of what they did, wishing that they continue to protect Lady and complete the mission they weren't able to do, as the two vanish, leaving only sunglasses behind. Pearl comes to an understanding of everything that just happened, but more importantly, Dia isn't surprised about any of it, revealing he's known something wasn't right since the start, but he didn't want to say anything, as if he did, it would mean the end of their trip. Although what they saw was scary, and their dream is to become professional comedians, right now Lady needs helping, so they'll continue forth and help her reach the peak safely, heading over to find her. As for Lady, she's been unknowingly working out on the sports equipment. Pearl and Diamond kneel down and promise from now on, they'll guard her with their lives. At the Galactic building, Cyrus arrives and pinches Saturn for using a broken machine, instead of finishing off the galactic bomb. Saturn explains that he has a master plan to kidnap and hold ransom Lady, but he's still struggling to get a photo of her, something the grunt from the game corner overhears. He heads back to the Lost Tower and checks the footage of the broken camera, where lo and behold, an image of Lady is present. With a new goal in mind, the group continue forth, but it's pouring down with rain. They want to find a hotel, but Lady's already found one, being the grandest hotel in Sinnoh, calling the duo by their names and asking if they're alright with it, but more importantly, revealing her Prinplup has evolved into an Empoleon. Before they head to the hotel, they decide to grab some food, and Pearl enters a building where the vibe is very battle heavy. Pearl asks what's the big idea, and the people apologize, saying this building is a battle restaurant. Although they have an infinite money glitch in the way of Lady, it wouldn't hurt to get some money for themselves, so he calls Diamond over and the two participate in battles, taking names and victories. A strange fellow by the name of Doctor's Footsteps then appears, in order to save the steps that the Pokemon took during battle. Lady's excited to learn about the footprints, and Mr. Footsteps explains that you can tell many things from them, such as happiness, how battles unfolded, and even friendship between trainer and Pokemon. For example, Pearl and Chatler are super close. They then hear that Hippowdon is outside, going outside to get his footprints, but the Pokemon isn't too happy, attacking them with a sandstorm and blasting them all the way to a lake. Pearl and Dr. Footsteps got separated from Dia and Lady, and the group tried to find each other. As they walk, Diamond tells Lady of a memory he had from when he was young. He and Pearl headed to the Lake Verity after learning about Johto's red Gyarados. But since they were stupid 4-year-olds, they got lost and separated. However, a light shined on the center of the lake, causing him to black out. Luckily though, he got saved by Pearl's dad. So now when he sees lakes, he always thinks about this. Lady asks him what Pearl thought about this, but he says he never told him, since he might have thought it was a dream, making her wonder why he told her something he never even told his best friend. A question even Dia doesn't know the answer to. Meanwhile, Dr. Footsteps and Pearl get into trouble with a Staraptor and they fly over the others. Dia and Lady then get interrupted by a group of scientists who say this area is off limits. They want to bring them in for questioning, but Lady says that they got dropped off by a tornado, and the only reason they're here is to find their friend. But more importantly, this lake is Lake Valor, and it doesn't belong to anyone. The scientists reveal that they have orders from Cyrus, leader of the Cosmic Energy Development Corporation, and they're not going to let these guys get any closer to the lake. Dia prepares to defend Lady, but his Torterra gets put to sleep. Lax is struggling against Drapion, and Lady realizes it's far too dangerous of a battle, taking out Ponytail so they can flee. The group end up falling though, and are close to meeting their end, but a bright flash appears from within the lake, giving Dia the chance to win with Rollout. They then spot Pearl and Dr. Footsteps, who got dropped off in the middle of the island. Dia asks about the light, but Pearl thinks about it, saying he doesn't remember one. Lady's feeling tired, so she falls asleep, but when she wakes up, it's a new day, and she ended up sleeping in a sleeping bag, which kind of sucks as she wanted to stay at the most luxurious hotel. On the bright side, because they stayed out, they got to witness the beauty of nature. Diamond and Pearl meet up with her and explain that Dr. Footsteps took the perps to the police, and the group prepare to continue on once again, but before they do, Pearl takes one last look at the middle of the lake. The next stop on the trio's adventure is aboard a tram, as they explored Pastoria City's Great Marsh. They had originally planned to challenge the gym leader Crash Awake, but since Lady's team wasn't really up to standards, they decided to try catch more Pokemon, gearing up and heading out. This is the first time they've tried to catch Pokemon since they started their trip, but things aren't as easy as they hope. Eventually they only have 3 Safari Balls left, and Lady really wants to catch at least one grass type, but the 3 end up getting stuck in the mud, and whilst they do, their Pokemon get attacked by a Carnivine. Chandler and Lax nearly end up getting eaten alive, but through its willpower, it breaks them out. Now the only problem is Lady, who sank while they were looking away. Pearl and Dia struggle and manage to free themselves, but Lady begins to drown in the mud. Chimla jumps to the rescue and manages to save her before it's too late. Since they nearly lost their lives, Pearl suggests Lady borrow True, just like she did with Chimla. They arrive back in the city, where they learn that Crash Awake has been protecting and keeping the city maintained through his hard work and effort, a man everyone in the city loves. After hearing these words, Lady decides to challenge him to a battle right away. Once at the gym, they meet the statue, who tells them the rules, being a free Pokemon entry, but only 2 Pokemon battle, kinda like the battle doing from the Battle Frontier. Pearl and Dia get to skip the other stuff though, since they're not competing, but Lady has to take on a maze. After some time, the gym battle comes around, and both trainers pick their Pokemon, Floatzel vs Empoleon. Crash Awake is excited for a water battle, so he changes the rules and lets him use the waterways to battle as well. The battle begins and the 2 Pokemon are evenly matched, heading into the water to continue their fight, but once again they're tied. Empoleon baits Floatzel into catching up, attacking from underneath and taking it down. Wake's final Pokemon is Quagsire, and it takes down the tired Empoleon, making things a 1-on-1. Lady sends out True, and a slower paced battle begins to take place. The Pokemon grapple each other, and Quagsire swings Torterra around, sending it into the water, but Lady gets hooked on the Pokemon spikes. Both Trainer and Pokemon are in the water, and Crash Awake prefers a Blizzard attack for when they resurface. But the water starts to cloud thanks to Lady's mud, and she doesn't come up for after a while. Wake sends in his trainers to save her, but she manages to get back up, resurfacing on the other side. And with a simple 4 times effective Giga Drain, she wins the battle. After being in the Great Marsh, she learned a lot of things, for example the way Carnivine hides. Lady asks Wake if he'll still get some prize money, and he says yeah, since this is his job after all. Which she's happy about, as she admires his willingness to help those less fortunate. Wake's embarrassed by all the compliments and awards Lady the Fen badge, making her halfway into a gym challenge. With a new badge acquired, the group head on to their next location, being the Pokemon Mansion. They then head to the Trophy Garden to see all the rare Pokemon that are there. Lady's getting treated to all the niceties, such as a free Soothe Bell, meanwhile Diamond and Pearl are getting watched by the security guard. Lady wants to continue exploring the garden, so they leave their Pokemon with her in order to keep her safe while they go practice. When they finish their rehearsals, Cynthia walks by. She's surprised to see how much they've grown, as well as their Pokemon. She explains that she's here to do some investigating on the Psyducks that have blocked Route 210, so she's gonna get to work unclogging them now. The group decide to tag along, and if you've ever wanted to see Cynthia race her Garchomp on a bike, well, here you go. They arrive at the blockage, and with the use of a secret potion and sprinkler, all the Psyduck are soothed, letting them return to where they came from. One of which belonged to a trainer, making Cynthia realize that someone's gathered them here to keep people from getting through. Before they can continue to Mount Coronet through Celestic Town, they meet Cynthia's grandma, who wants to tell them about the legend of Sinnoh Lakes. Diamond and Pearl perform their comedy routine, and it goes down as a success. And they decide to help Cynthia's grandmother to get back to Celestic Town, whilst she tells the story to them. Cynthia can't go with them though, as she has to return the Psyduck and report back to the mansion. To ensure their safety though, she leaves them with Garchomp. The road ahead is super foggy, and Pearl nearly meets his doom on it. Grandma explained that in the 3 Sinnoh Lakes, there's Pokemon that command over knowledge, emotion, and willpower. The group arrive in Celestic Town, where the legend is continued, but no one can learn of it since the hole to the ruin is too small. Garchomp suddenly gets on edge as it sees what looks like mini Nosepasses inspecting the cave. A voice then compliments the Pokemon for being able to tell its enemy even without its trainer being present, this enemy being Cyrus. Diamond and Pearl put 2 and 2 together from his uniform, and Garchomp attacks under Grandma's command. It gets the upper hand with Pearl's foresight and dodges the attack successfully. However, in the chaos, the cave opens up, allowing Cyrus to enter. Probopass then uses Rock Slide to block the other's entry. Once inside, Cyrus learns of the connection between Uxie, Azelf, and Mesprit, the Pokemon he searches for. Grandma explains that no one should be able to see what's inside the ruins, but in this case, they have no choice but to enter and stop it. Lady also wants to see what this mural means, but Diamond tells her that she can't afford to be spoiled by Cyrus. Pearl realizes though that he doesn't care about them, instead he's focusing entirely on this legend. And right now, they have no choice but to run. Garchomp is strong, but finding 2 Pokemon isn't easy, and their Pokedex hasn't been able to scan these new evolutions. Not to mention, last time they met Cyrus, he attempted to kill them. They prepare a plan to leave with Garchomp, but when done, he is revealed to have stayed behind. Diamond approaches Cyrus, singing the anthem of the Pro Team Omega, and telling Cyrus about the villains in the show, asking if he's just like them. But Cyrus walks right past him and captures a photo of the mural. He thinks to himself about what he's deciphered and heads back to his vehicle, but Diamond gets in his way again, so Cyrus nukes him with Magnet Bomb. Pearl heads to his friend's rescue, and he says that True helped him at the last second, and Lax also managed to steal the camera. Pearl asks why he attempted such a crazy thing, asking him if he's stupid. But Diamond says maybe he is. Running away was Pearl's idea, but his idea was to stay behind. Pearl always bosses him around, so he's been meaning to tell him something for a while, and that's that he's not his sidekick. Pearl asks when he bosses him around, and Dia says all the time, especially when he's getting hit in their routines. Pearl starts getting angry, as after all he came up with the ideas, while he's just sleeping and eating, only choosing to hit him because it makes everything funnier. And Diamond retorts saying he says he's doing it for the both of them, but in truth he's just doing it for himself. Whilst these 2 best friends make enemies, their true foe appears. Cyrus preps a charge beam, and Pearl tries to get Dia to run, but True blocks the attack. Pearl says they gotta ditch the camera and run, after all their mission is to protect Lady and bring her safely to Mount Coronet. Dia says even if he gets pressured like this, and even if it's a good plan, doesn't mean that he's taken in consideration his own feelings, deciding to follow his own gut. Cyrus took the info that was never meant to be seen, and if he uses it for evil, it can only lead to tragedy. Pearl's never seen his friend this angry before, and Cyrus begins another attack to get the camera back. But Lax manages to fight back, so Cyrus commands Magnezone to use its magnets and pull everything with metal, including their Pokedexes, Pokeballs, and of course the camera. But at the last second, Chatler comes to the rescue, grabbing the camera and flying far away. Dia looks to his friend, and Pearl says although he may be weak himself, Dia is showing true willpower right now, so he can't just ignore it, feeling bad that he's never considered his friend's feelings until now. Cyrus then commands Gravity, dropping Chatler immediately. He tells the boys that their efforts are pathetic and futile. Everything he does is bigger than the both of them, as it's as grand as the grand cosmos. He formally introduces himself as Cyrus, the man who seeks the energy in order to create an ideal world, rid of petty strife. He wonders if the 2 boys will join him. Both of them are brave and they follow their heart and will, something his henchmen could learn from. Pearl asks if he wants them to join his side, and Cyrus says that's right. With their youthful energy, together they can create a new world. So Pearl tells him to remove the gravity, and Cyrus complies, whilst Pearl gives Chatler one more command, and that's to smash the camera, with this being his answer to Cyrus. Coincidentally, Fantina is flying over Celestic Town and spots what's going on down below. Cyrus begins laughing and shouting, and the more he shouts, the stronger his Pokemon gets, changing the direction of the wind and bringing over the fog from the nearby routes. He then raises the earth with earth power, rocketing Dia and Pearl into the sky on a pillar, revealing this to be his answer to theirs. By using ground combined with magnetic force, he showcased his clear superiority. and even though they're kids, he won't let any disrespect slide. He then commands Defog and prepares to leave. Pearl has an undying will, and Diamond has pure emotion. All they need is knowledge, and it'll be a picture-perfect triangle. With Cyrus gone, the atmosphere returns back to normal, and Lady's happy that they're all alive together. Grandma thanks Dio for risking his life to steal the camera, and Pearl wants to hype him up as his own, but after what happened, that wouldn't be too appropriate. Grandma tells Cynthia what happened, and Cynthia says that she'll organize a new defense force. Now that everything's over, Lady's interested in the ruins, since she's a student of archaeology herself. The ones inside the ruins touched her heart, but so did the ones outside. The rocky pillar then begins to fall apart, but Dia and Pearl are luckily saved by Fantina. She wants to see another one of their skits, but the timing's kind of bad. Nonetheless, Dia accepts, starting the skit by himself, but he struggles. Luckily though, Pearl helps him out and the gag is complete. The group then say their goodbyes to Grandma and Garchomp, and Pearl apologizes to Dia, asking if he's willing to work with him once again, which he is. Aboard the galactic plane, the grunt from earlier successfully managed to decipher the image of Lady, and finds out tons of information about her, even locating her father and Professor Rowan. Now as for where the trio are going, they're back in Hearthome City, which is even further from Mount Coronet. Lady says it's all good though, as they still have a gym to challenge here, with Santina revealing she's actually the city's gym leader. Later at the hotel, Diamond and Pearl rehearse, but now they need to take things to the next level, and that's by getting a visual gag. Meanwhile, Lady's training outside, so Pearl decides to help her out as well. Since Fantina is a ghost type user, she's going to be using hallucinations, so her best option is to bring Lax to help. The group head to the gym and Lady gets to pick the rules, being a free Pokemon switch in battle. Heading back to Canale City, Lady's father gets ambushed by the Grunt, who demands money in return for his daughter's safety. Lady's father knows that she's being protected by professional bodyguards, but the Grunt explains that her guards have been disposed of, daring him to call him and find out, and sure enough, they don't answer. So with Mr. Berlitz being at their mercy, Team Galactic's money problem is now a thing of the past. Back over at the gym, the battle's about to start, but the floor starts swaying, making Lazy dizzy. This is all thanks to Miss Magius getting impatient. Once everything gets back to normal, the battle begins, with Duskull versus Lax. Dia cheers on his Pokemon, and with a simple lick attack, Duskull goes down. Drifblim is up next, and Lady switches to Empoleon. Drifblim goes for Ominous Wind, but Empoleon uses it as a chance to fire off Blizzard, taking down Drifblim as well. But now it's Miss Magius' turn, and with his murmurs, everything begins to change. It starts off by outspeeding Empoleon with the use of Trick Room, and takes it down. Ponyta is out next, but it can't manage to keep its cool, and gets taken out as well. Lady's only Pokemon left is Lax, who also falls prey to their hallucinations. Fantina's trick works especially well on Lady and her Pokemon, as they're too focused on logic. Meanwhile, Lax and Dia are way too attracted by food. Pearl's the only one keeping things together, and after a while he figures something out, telling Lady that the food is delicious and that he's having fun. So by following his lead, Lady starts to enjoy herself with Lax, and Fantina goes for the finishing blow, but Miss Magius' head gets bonked by an iron ball, taking it down. This is all thanks to Lax using Fling, with an iron ball that they found at the Celestic Ruins incident. And since Fantina is a ghost type user, they wanted Lax to have some dark type moves. And lastly, the iron ball slowed down Lax, guaranteeing it to move first in the Trick Room. So just like that, Lady gets her 5th badge, but the statue says that Pearl's actions were practically coaching. Fantina though still accepts the win as a legit win, since no one had broken through her hallucinations before. As for Dia, he fell down one of the platforms, but he's come up with a new visual gag in the process, so that'll be perfect for the future. Fantina recommends that they stop by Canale City before going to Mount Coronet, showcasing the conference on TV. But the news station reports that Professor Rowan and Mr. Berlitz have gone missing. After hearing this news, Lady calls Sebastian, explaining to the others that Mr. Berlitz is her father. Diamond reassures her that everything will be fine, and in order to help with transport, Fantina gives them Drifblim once again. Pearl realizes things are going to get dicey, as they're escorting her, but they're not her real bodyguards. The group arrive in Canale City, but since none of the investigators are here yet, they should go rest at a hotel for now. Lady wants to do the same, but she hears her father's voice, rushing towards a building. Once they enter, a mechanism activates, pushing them all around to Roark's father, Byron, and he wants to know what they're doing here without permission. Speaking of Roark, let's head to Oreburgh City for a while, as his Craniodos is evolving into a Rampados. He speaks to one of his colleagues on his visit to Canale City. His father noticed a suspicious gang visiting the city and doing research in the library. He ended up investigating them, and now recently this has happened, thinking that the two scenarios are likely connected. However, his father is known for rushing into things headlong, so he's kind of worried about him. Which we see here and now as he fights Lady with his Bronzong. Pearl can see that he's not a rookie trainer, planning his moves carefully, so he and Dia head out to help. Lady stops him though, as this has to do with her father, so she'll fight it herself. and with Ponyta's flames, she burns down the curtain, uncovering her captured father's location. Dia recognizes them as the people they bumped into back in Jubilee City, and Pearl realizes the time for the truth is near. Lady demands the releasage of her father, taking down both Bronzongs. And after hearing this, and seeing that she has gym badges, Byron quickly understands his mistake. Lady is about to smash the cage open with a shovel, but Byron explains that he's been trying to figure out how to open it the right way, introducing himself as Canalave City's gym leader, Byron, wishing that his Shieldon showed her the badges sooner, but this little Pokemon is way too independent. Since he technically lost here, Lady earns her 6th gym badge, and we get to hear the results of his investigation. He overheard Mr. Berlitz getting forcefully extorted by Team Galactic, rushing to the rescue, but Professor Rowan also appeared, forcing the grunt to trap them into a cage. This cage has a special edition of trapping out sound, however it's weakening over time and they can slowly start to hear each other. Mr. Berlitz is relieved that his daughter managed to get free, even with her bodyguards getting defeated. Lady is confused by what he's saying, as after all she never got kidnapped and her bodyguards have been protecting her every step of the way. But Mr. Berlitz replies saying he doesn't know the 2 boys that she's with. So Diamond and Pearl tell the truth. They're not her real bodyguards, and in fact they're just some random kids. However, they witnessed the real bodyguards vanishing in Veilstone City. Even after everything was just a misunderstanding, they still pledged to keep Lady safe. Lady's speechless at what she's hearing, but what makes her most upset is the fact that they've been lying to her, when she put their trust in them, turning around and running away. Meanwhile, over at Veilstone's Galactic building, Cyrus is happy that the funds they stole are going to good work, as the bomb is nearly complete and in a week from now they'll detonate it. Back in Canalave, Diamond and Pearl watch Lady from a distance, and over 8 hours have passed. Although Diamond wants to comfort her, Pearl says they can't right now since they're the ones who hurt her. Byron goes to speak with her, revealing that her father and Professor Rowan have decided to cut her journey short. With the interference of Team Galactic, everything's way too dangerous, but next time, she'll have proper bodyguards to defend her. As for Diamond and Pearl, they'll be going back to their own homes. For the night, Lady stays at Canalave City's gym accommodation, finally falling asleep. But when her guard is lowered, Team Galactic's grunt appears, thanking her for their ability to complete the galactic bomb, and revealing he's about to release her father. But before he goes, he leaks that they're going to use the bomb to capture the 3 legendary Pokemon and detonate them to dry up the Sinnoh Lakes, and it will all happen next Saturday. You may be wondering, why would he say this information? Well, that's because you can't hear him anyway. As she sleeps, Lady dreams of her travels with her friends, but the Lake Trio appear and everything gets nuked, with Diamond and Pearl meeting a gruesome end. She wakes up from her nightmare, and after some self-reflection, she prepares a letter. Diamond and Pearl on the other hand are preparing to leave, apologizing for everything they've done. They would have liked to say goodbye, but they don't want to upset Lady anymore. They've given all the information they can, and now whatever happens isn't their business. Diamond wants to argue this, but Pearl knows what he's going to say. But the pain they're feeling now is what they get for hurting Lady in the first place, returning both their Pokedexes and Pokecatchers. But suddenly, the Dexes start beeping as Lady appears. She knows what everyone said in their own opinions, but now it's time for her to voice her own thoughts. She's not good with words, so she's written a letter, reading it out. Yesterday, she ran away after hearing the truth, and spent the night not knowing what to believe. However, after thinking about everything they've been through on their journey, she came to the conclusion that she enjoyed it, and honestly had a lot of fun. Experiencing many things that she's only read about before, all thanks to them protecting her from danger. And although she called them liars, in truth she is too, listing out all the times she lied, and I mean every single one, bowing her head and apologizing, promising from now on she'll be honest with them, starting by saying she wants to travel with them no matter what happens, signing off her letter to her knights, with her name Platinum Berlitz, finally giving our protagonist a name after I don't even know how many chapters. She then tells the others that she's going to be continuing her journey and crushing evil while she's at it, going to the lakes and protecting the Pokemon from the bomb. Mr. Berlitz asks his daughter to reconsider, after all this is really dangerous, but she refuses, disobeying her father and showcasing her will with her Ponyta evolving. She tells the others what she heard last night, and because of this she just can't rest. Byron sends out his Bronzong, and Pearl warns her of an incoming extrasensory attack, and Rapidash successfully blocks it. Byron tells Mr. Berlitz that his daughter is very capable, and that's proof now and by her 6 badges. Mr. Berlitz brings up the fair point that this is a job for the police, but Byron knows the enemy is too powerful for the police to deal with. Well, not including the international police. Not to mention, Lady gathered 6 badges in 25 days, which is already way faster than the record held by Sapphire, with 8 badges in 80 days. Professor Rowan agrees with this, and Mr. Berlitz gives in. After all, this is the first time she's ever offered a genuine apology, asking Diamond and Pearl to protect her, and thanking them for helping her transform to this point. before the three can set out again, Ruin upgrades their Pokedexes to national ones, and officially accepting Diamond and Pearl as Dex holders. Right now though, they've got a big problem. There's 3 Sinnoh lakes and only a week to get to them all. Considering the amount of money they took, they probably have 3 bombs and they'll most likely all go off at the same time. So Pearl decides that since there's 3 of them, they'll split up and take it on individually. And they all agree to this, vowing to protect the legends of the lake. So Pearl heads for Lake Valor and Platinum Lake Acuity, leaving Lake Verity for Diamond. But before he can go, Byron has a task for him, and that's to board a ship and undergo some special training. Lady is the strongest of them all, and Pearl can predict attacks. As for him, he doesn't have any special battle properties. However, he does get along with the Shieldon that Byron was looking after, so he's gonna give it to him and have him go through a training arc himself. The next day rolls around, and on Route 204, Pearl and his team wake up, ready for their quest. Usually he has to wait for the others in the lobby, and they all stop their beeping Pokedexes. But today, all that awaits him is silence. As for Lady, she awakens on Route 211 with her team. For her, Pearl would usually scold her for being late, and Dia would be the last to join them. The Pokedex would still be beeping, but now all that's here is silence. And lastly, Diamond, who awakens aboard the SS Sinnoh with his team. Normally everyone would already be awake and meet him in the lobby. The Pokedex would beep and they would all turn him off at the same time. But today, no beeping occurs, with all 3 trainers feeling the sadness of having to travel alone for the first time since they started. But let's move on from the waterworks. If you're wondering who's captaining this SS Sinnoh, it's Eldritch, the sailor we've grown familiar with. He meets up with Diamond and discovers his Pokemon are eating all the food on the ship. It's his first day being a captain and now he has to deal with Diamond's antics, asking his crew to keep an eye on him. But it turns out they've all been knocked out, and the culprit here is Gliscor. Diamond checks it with his Pokedex, which Eldritch of course recognizes. But Gliscor begins its attacks with Fire, Ice and Thunder Fangs. So Diamond prepares a counter, having Lax throw a ton of berries at the Pokemon, whilst Don the Shieldon polishes its head with True's tree. Gliscor tries to bite down on Don, but it ends up holding itself instead, allowing True to finish it off with Razor Leaf. Dia then gives Eldritch a letter from Byron, but because they were busy chatting, they didn't steal the ship and are about to have a Titanic incident. Fortunately, someone comes to the rescue, destroying the rock with a flash cannon. This person being Riley, who's come at Byron's request to train Dia at Iron Island. Iron Island is the perfect area for training, and he'll be starting off with a 3v1 against Riley's Lucario. Dia commands all his Pokemon attack, but Lucario dodges each one and close combats True. It then begins raining Aura Spheres down on everyone. True goes with a Wood Hammer attack combined with the weight of the others in order to crush Lucario, but some more Aura Spheres rain down on them, taking down Dia's team. Riley explains that his Lucario sent some spheres higher into the sky so that they could come down later. However, Dia's still pretty good. His Pokemon tanked close combat and his team is overall bulky. Once they evolve, he'll have a sturdy team by his side, as well as the fact that they already have combos, for example hiding in True's trees and using their weight with Wood Hammer. Lucario has the power to read thoughts and predict attacks, however it couldn't fully handle the brute force of Dia's team. As for his flaws, Dia's team is way too slow, so he's gonna have to work at covering his weaknesses. Inside the Iron Island cave, he'll have to circuit round it 5 times, whilst finding the best way to deal with the wild Pokemon and compensating on his own weakness. A wild Steelix then appears, but Don manages to block it. The Pokemon then begins attacking with Iron Tail, but Lax manages to grab it, giving True a perfect opportunity to attack, but Dia hesitates. Riley asks when all the trouble's going down, and Dia reveals it's next Saturday. So if they take in consideration how long it'll take him to reach Lake Verity, he only has 3 days to lock in with his training. True tries to attack with Crunch as Dia doesn't want to risk Earthquake hurting everyone else, but ultimately his team gets defeated and Steelix flees. Riley lets him know that the Steelix is the leader of the cave, and even he hasn't defeated it himself yet. Dia continues his training going through the levels and getting healed whenever he reaches the entrance, and 2 days of training fly by. On the last day, Dia cooks some dinner for everyone, and Riley notices a book he has on battle practice, where Dia lists out everything he has to do in order to cover his weaknesses. Drawn by the smell of the nice food, wild Pokemon come over to them and enjoy the meal with them. In the middle of the night, Dia gets up and practices with True, hitting a target with its Razor Leaf. Byron calls Riley to hear Dia's progress, and Riley explains that he lacks power, but he's super compassionate and hardworking, finding solutions to every problem that comes his way, and tomorrow will be his final exam. Lucario then senses something that catches his attention. The last day of training comes around, and for his exam, he has to do the same course, but this time he has to find an egg, which Riley has hidden. However, he's gonna have to get through it quickly, as otherwise the wild Pokemon will get to the egg before him. Dia gets straight to work, but a defeated Steelix blocks his path. Riley comes to check it out and decides to change plans as it seems that someone else is here causing trouble. They progress into the cave and Riley and Lucario end up getting attacked by something with some slime covering his face. This slime being honey, but even without their sense of sight, they can still detect auras and thoughts. But their foes appear and have plans to counter this, attacking with Power Gem which successfully lands on their target. The Roughnecks reveal that they have an aura seal which does as it sounds, and to make things worse, they've even got the Pokemon egg. Aura is detected through waves in the air, but by having Mothim use Air Slash, they can make that aura near impossible to read. Since they're up against fast enemies, it's Dia's time to shine, finally showcasing how he'll overcome his weakness. He commands a Razor Leaf attack, but Vespiquen blocks the attack. He tries once again, but the attack's even slower this time. However, he shot more leaves. In other words, the amount of leaves he shoots equals the amount of speed, so all he has to do is fire one Razor Leaf at max power and max speed, commanding Razor Leaf one more time and piercing straight through Vespiquen. Dia names the secret finishing move the Razor Leaf Diamond Special, Mark 1 and only. Vespiquen drops the egg and the Pokemon's drones start panicking, interfering with Mothim and breaking their aura seal, allowing Riley to finish them off. Back at the ship, the egg begins to hatch and Riolu is born. They ask the Roughnecks why they're after the egg in the first place, and they reveal someone offered them millions to cause trouble on Iron Island. Riley tells Dia that he worked hard and passed the test, and Dia thanks him, but he knows the enemy came looking for him specifically. Riley then scans the area, noticing something in the sky, and Dia sends a Mark Leaf dropping it down, being a Team Galactic camera. They then head to Byron's house on Iron Island, as he's left him a gift for Shieldon, being a metal coat. He then spots a photo of Byron and Roa, making him realize all the families, including his own, that he has to protect. So with his training arc complete, Dia heads off with Eldritch back to Sinnoh. Meanwhile, Riley tracks the aura of the owner of the drone. Now that we've spent some time with Dia, let's check in with Pearl, who's scaling a mountain with his team, spotting a helicopter landing on a spiked building. He then gets into some trouble with some Wingull parents, but clears a misunderstanding and helps out their baby. However, by doing this, he ends up detouring to Fuego Ironworks. The building is spewing fire and inside is a complete mess, and he spots a letter with a galactic symbol, wondering what they're up to. Someone inside the building is calling for help, but before he can find a way in, he gets ambushed. Fortunately, it's a friendly face, being Luxray, reuniting with the Pokemon in his pack once again. Luxray leads Pearl around the building where there's a hole inside, and joins him in exploring. With the use of his X-ray vision, they can find the person in danger, locating them and trying to help. This guy is Mr. Fuego, and he's the owner of this place. He was given a job request to make some parts, which he did with no question, but after handing them over, he realized they were planning on making a bomb. The grunts tried to attack him, so he ran into the factory and activated his defense mechanism, which are the moving floors, which did their job at stopping the enemy from getting to him. But now he can't get out because the moving floors are moving against him. And that's not all, the grunts left behind some Pokemon, being a ton of Magby. So Pearl and his team begin fighting off the enemy, eventually taking them all down. But Pearl accidentally gets on a conveyor, which begins taking him towards a furnace. As Pearl meets his end, we head to Celestic Town, where Cynthia speaks with her grandmother, mainly about the Cyrus incident. They've never been able to decipher the hieroglyphs, and chances are Cyrus hasn't been able to either, asking her grandma to give her the documents to protect, which she agrees to. Back with Pearl, he heads straight for the furnace, but luckily Luxray leaps to save him, burning itself in the process while completing its mission. Pearl thanks the Pokemon and asks for his help once more. By using its X-ray vision, they should be able to navigate through the moving floors without getting injured. They then hear a spooky howl, turning around to find a Houndoom, who is also a part of Team Galactic's crew. Pearl tells Luxray to continue forwards, whilst he gives instructions on how to dodge. But he starts panicking after Luxray gets grazed, and the two end up getting a full-blown attack. Despite this setback, Luxray continues with the plan, having the willpower to trust Pearl. They continue dodging and navigating, and finally they clear the area, allowing Luxray to turn around and prepare to attack Houndoom, sending it flying out the building across the moving floors. They then successfully meet up with Mr. Fuego and save him. Pearl heals up Luxray and gets ready to continue on, but Luxray wants to join him on his journey, which his pride agrees with. So Pearl accepts, nicknaming it Rayla. He then asks Mr. Fuego about the materials he used to build the galactic bomb. With Pearl's arc done, next up is Platinum on Route 216. Since it's a snowy route, she's gonna have to ski through, and although she's read about it, she's never done it herself. The skier asks if she's new to it, but she replies that she's perfectly good, before remembering her promise, revealing this is her first time. The skier offers to teach her, but after countless failed attempts, he gives up on her, leaving her to go down the slope. Platinum ends up crashing and some of her equipment ends up hitting a wild Graveler, who brings over his crew in order to get some revenge. Platinum asks her and Empoleon to try resolve things peacefully, but the Pokemon don't seem too cooperating. Eventually, Empoleon manages to blow snow over them, giving Lady the chance to hide, but she begins to pass out in the blizzard due to her light clothing. Some time passes, and when she awakens, she's been saved by a trainer in her bomber snow. The girl jokes that Platinum was her twin due to also wearing light clothing, but explains that if you wear them, you'll increase your focus. Platinum passes out again, and next time she wakes up, she's back in her lodging. The caretaker tells her that her winter gears arrive, and next time she should wait before going out in the cold. Platinum asks about the girl who saved her, spoiling a poster, revealing that she's the gym leader of Snow Point City, Candace. The best Sinnoh gym leader, by the way. Platinum needs to focus on going to Lake Acuity, however Snow Point is on the way there, so she should thank Candace before going. As she prepares to head outside, she spots Maylene. Maylene is headed to Snow Point City to meet Candace, as they have friends who train together, so Platinum tags along, training in the same way as Maylene, especially since Candace was dressed light and so is Maylene. In truth though, Candace values fashion over common sense, and Maylene is too poor to afford anything else. The two then reach the beautiful city of Snow Point City, and with a path to Lake Acuity also being visible, Lady knows that she needs to go there. But in order to do that, she has to speak with Candace, who looks after both Snow Point Temple and the lake. So Platinum heads for the gym, but the statue mistakes her appearance for a gym challenge, sending her through the puzzle. For this battle, it's going to be a 3-on-3 switch-in, with Platinum using Empoleon, Rapidash, and a secret new member. She blizzards through the gym challenge and meets up with Candace, thanking her for her help and preparing for a battle. The battle gets underway with Empoleon vs Nova, and after a simple Metal Claw, it's a 3v2. Also you'd think, the Empoleon gets hit by a delayed Seed Bomb, taking it down too. Candace sends out her secret ace Frostlass, while Platinum chooses Rapidash. With it now being evolved, its speed has increased, and even if it gets hit, it can recover with rest. Candace can tell that Platinum's trying to end the battle quickly, which means she's lacking in focus, making her panic and drop her guidebook. Candace looks her up and down and manages to suss everything out, knowing she's in a battle that she didn't necessarily want to take and is just following the flow. She wakes up Rapidash with Wake Up Slap and asks the chairman if they can call off the battle, but this can't be allowed. Platinum thinks to herself on what to do. Rapidash is getting low on health due to Wake Up Slap, and Empoleon is out of commission. Normally, Diamond and Pearl would support her, but for this battle, she has no choice but to fight herself. Try out her new Pokemon that she's never battled with. Candace gets back into things, making Platinum accidentally send out her new team member, being Lopunny. Candace tells Platinum that dilly-dallying isn't the way to go through things, and if she doesn't get her act together, she'll never be able to take down Team Galactic, beginning her attack with Ice Shard. Platinum wants to know about how she knows about Team Galactic, but the only way to find out is by showcasing her focus, logging in and having Lopunny begin evasive maneuvers, and striking with Jump Kick, taking down a Bomber Snow. Frostlass is back out, and it can match Lopunny's speed, taking it down, but the battle isn't over, as Rapidash blazes into battle, healed by Lopunny's Healing Wish, and taking down Frostlass, winning Platinum the battle. She thanks Candace for reminding her what's important, and Candace gives her the Icicle badge. She also recommends that she gets more Pokemon to join her against Team Galactic, for example the wild ones that hang out in the gym. Platinum asks how she knows about them, and she reveals that all the gym leaders are tight-knit and talk about these things. So now she'll be joining her and heading to Lake Acuity, along with Maylene. We now head back to Pearl, who feels the chills from the wintry season, rolling down his shirt, revealing he's been actually wearing a long sleeves this whole time. But because of how cozy and warm it makes him feel, he decides to roll out his sleeves. Pearl then takes a look at the info from Team Galactic, thinking about his run-ins with them, especially Cyrus. Team Galactic seem to have a space theming and dream of creating a new galaxy, but how does that link with drying up lakes? He asks Mr. Fuego about the materials, learning that he only requested enough for one bomb. Sinnoh has 3 major lakes with special Pokemon that protect each of them, but they only made enough for one bomb. He then remembers about the bike shop owner who claimed to be saved from Team Galactic's Eterna building, so their best bet to head to Eterna City and ask him. Mr. Fuego also has a delivery for the guy, so it works out perfectly. Pearl and his team head into Eterna City, but since it's late, the shop's already closed. Suddenly, 2 Clefairy appear, preparing an attack, but Pearl's been training hard, getting ready to use Flare Blitz. Suddenly, the bike shop owner Mr. Rickshaw appears, revealing the Clefairy to be his. Ever since he got kidnapped, he's been on high alert, as well as the fact that they wanted to take his Clefairy. And Pearl notes a link between the Pokemon and stars in space. A helicopter flies by and the Clefairy begin panicking. So Pearl tells Mr. Rickshaw about Team Galactic and their plans, theorizing the bomb parts are in Veilstone City, based on what Mr. Fuego told him. And chances are, Eterna City is being used to move things around. Since they need to get to Lake Valor, Mr. Rickshaw suggests that they take a 2-person bike and travel with speed. So they head off, with only 2 days remaining. However, whilst they're setting off, Team Galactic are also setting off with 3 aircrafts, heading straight for Veilstone. Heading back to Dia, he's finally arrived at Jubilee City, where his journey originally began. First things first though is lunchtime. However, his food and map get stolen whilst he plans things out. Dia runs around the city to find the culprit, but ends up bumping into the Poketch company guys. Dia needs to get to finding his map, but the president explains about the Poketch and his digital map feature. And just like that, Dia gets caught in having to advertise the Poketch to others. But whilst they do this, it gets stolen by what seems like a tongue. Chasing after it and finding a Licky tongue. Dia wants to catch the Pokemon and nickname it Kit, preparing to battle. But during the fight, this Licky tongue evolves into a Licky Licky. Dia's never caught a Pokemon before, so when he tries to throw a Pokeball, it ends up making the Pokemon angrier. Licky Licky spams Dig, and Dia realizes the Pokemon's not only attacking, but stealing items. So by using the Poketch's dowsing machine, they can find his hideout. He speaks down a hole, telling the Pokemon he also likes collecting, but you shouldn't steal from others. Predicting the Pokemon's next attacking location by using the pedometer and catching it. And with one more Pokeball, successfully adding it to his team. A crowd is formed watching Dia's actions, and all rush to buy a Poketch. Dia needs to go to the lake though, but first he has to return all the items that Kit stole, with one of them being a Pro Team Omega figure. He returns the figure to its owner, but she reveals that it was her grandson's who doesn't use it anymore, so he can keep it, which is a big win for him. He turns it on and it begins running around, so he chases after it, and eventually ends up climbing a fence, landing in a beautiful park. He heads through the park, but no matter how far he goes, there seems to be no exit. Suddenly, Sebastian appears, asking him what he's doing trespassing on Sanjian property. Dia gets easily apprehended, and Sebastian boasts that with his security, the Berlitz estate will always be safe, making Dia realize that he's at Platinum's home, introducing himself and making Sebastian humbly apologize. Sebastian brings him into the home and dresses him up, and he thanks him for everything he's done for Platinum. Right now, they only have one day until the lake attack, and Team Galactic is sure to be present soon. Professor Rowan and Mr. Berlitz are still in Canalave, recuperating from their injuries, but still working at his lab is Roseanne, one of the other researchers. Roseanne heads outside for some fresh air, but finds herself surrounded by Yanmega. The Pokemon swarm her and try break into the lab, with them buzzing so loud that nothing else can be heard. So as a form of SOS, she flickers a light switch, hoping that someone can notice, which luckily Dia and Sebastian do. Dia assumes that the Pokemon are here on orders of Team Galactic, so they're gonna have to get rid of them properly. Reading the notebook that Pearl made for him, as well as using his own Pokedex to figure out a way to deal with the Pokemon, coming to the conclusion that destroying the Galactic camera is the best bet, rushing in head first and succeeding, causing the Yanmega to flee. As for who was in charge of the swarm, that would be Mars, who's grown tired of Saturn's annoying gadgets. However, she doesn't have to worry anymore as she's finally arrived at Lake Verity. During the battle, Dia's clothes got all ripped up, so he's gonna have to find a new outfit. Fortunately, he lives nearby, heading home to Twinleaf Town. We now temporarily head back to Pearl, who's curious about the statue in Eterna City. Mr. Rickshaw explains that it's been there for a long time, and that there used to be two plaques on it. One talking about a Pokemon that creates time, and the other about a Pokemon that creates space. In fact, he got kidnapped by Team Galactic due to his family knowing this info. Back with Dia, he arrives in Twinleaf Town, showcasing both his and Pearl's house to his new team members. Meanwhile, Sebastian and Roseanne are following after him, in order to help with his Sinnoh endangering issue. Dia tells his mother that he's home, but to no reply, heading upstairs and getting changed, learning that there's a new jacket for him, but not only that, his mother's gone to Lake Verity to find some berries. Upon learning this news, Dia understandably rushes out the house at light speed. Meanwhile, the, and I quote, not dressed appropriately for the weather girl trio are still continuing forth to Lake Acuity. Platinum's actually been to the lake before when she was young, and she went missing there for a short while, and during this time she encountered a specific Pokemon, according to what her father said back in Canalave City. A Sableye appears and starts attacking them, but not only that, Gastrodon also appears, trapping Candice with a Mud Bomb. These two Pokemon belong to Team Galactic Commander Jupiter, and she begins her attack, stopping the girls from freeing Candice. She then ups the level by sending out her third Pokemon, Tangrowth. The Pokemon lets out a blinding light, allowing Sableye to attack from multiple shadows. Candice then manages to break out through the help of a Bonusno, and she rushes at Tangrowth, but uses Natural Gift with a Cherry Berry, unleashing a fire-type attack. An airship then appears overhead, and Jupiter reveals that only one has a bomb, and whilst the other commanders hope to have it, she really couldn't care less. Diamond rushes over to Lake Verity with the use of his running shoes, but Team Galactic and their airship have already reached there. They need to find Diamond's mom, but if he searches they'll just find him. So instead Lax will look, since he knows his mom and his mom knows that it's his Pokemon. And if Team Galactic can find Lax, he can just pretend to be a wild Pokemon. And once his mom's been found, Sebastian and Roseanne need to take her on the carriage, meanwhile he heads to the ship. And luckily for this mission, he still has Fantina's Drifblim. Dia heads into the shrubs and finds Lax, but also his mother and Mars. Over at Lake Valor, Pearl notes that the road isn't blocked like before, getting his squad ready to fight. His first job is to check the small island, crossing the lake and boosting themselves forward with chimless flames. Mr. Rickshaw is impressed by his will, but suddenly he gets grabbed by a tentacle and dragged into the lake. Pearl asks Rayleigh to check the island with his X-ray vision, but he gets dragged underwater by an Octillery. The Pokemon then fires off an Octozooka, completely destroying the tree they were on. Commander Saturn then appears, also impressed by Pearl's skills, introducing himself formally. He also reveals that Mr. Rickshaw is out of commissions, and in 3 minutes, the bomb's gonna detonate. He doesn't know where it's gonna be, but he really hopes that it's this place. Since the detonation time is soon, he thinks it's best to leave Pearl in the water, where he can get evaporated by the bomb. But before that, he wants to know why he was headed for the island in the first place. As for Diamond, he's forced to drop all of his Pokeballs, and Mars is surprised to see his face again, introducing herself as a lady from Valley Windworks. Right now he's helpless, so she wonders if he wants to watch the bomb go off as well. But Dia isn't here to mess around. A battle begins and Dia's mom Joanna sprays Zubat's face with a berry, giving her the chance to escape and Dia the chance to open a Pokeball, heading for the airship with Drifblim. But Mars is also chasing after him. In the skies, Yanmega's faster, and Purugly is also getting involved, so things are looking really bad. 20 seconds remain until detonation, and Mars reveals that Mesprit will appear soon. As for with the girls, Jupiter reveals that Uxie will appear soon. And lastly with Pearl, Saturn wants to know the secret of the island, but with 10 seconds remaining, Azelf will make its appearance soon as well. The timer ticks down and everyone wonders where the bomb's gonna drop, as all the hatches open, and the bomb does in fact go off. Dia and Mars watch as nothing happens, and the same occurrence happens at Lake Acuity, meaning only one possibility, as a bomb explodes at Lake Valor, completely evaporating all the water in the lake. Saturn is amazed by the power of his work, and now all he wants to know is why Pearl went for the middle of the lake. With no other choice, Pearl reveals. Back when they first came here, a bright light emerged, which he had forgotten about, but now he remembers. Inside a puzzle in the cave lied a blue Pokemon in the reflection. Saturn reveals the Pokemon he saw was Azelf, and him and the Grunts raid the island, finding the Pokemon in the flesh. Meanwhile at the other caves, Mesprit and Uxie also awaken, and they fly out their caves, with both Dia and Platinum recognizing them. Although their lakes weren't bombed, the Pokemon are linked together, so they all awoke together. Jupiter attempts to catch the Pokemon, and despite Candace and Maylene's best efforts, Critical Stone Edge puts them down. Platinum's the only one left standing, and all she can do is watch as the Pokemon gets caught in the net. She tries to have Rapidash burn through it, but Natural Gift Water puts a stop to that, allowing Uxie to be captured. Over at Lake Verity, Mesprit is surrounded by Saravia, and it gets caught in the net as well. Dia holds on for dear life, sending True out and having her use Mark Leaf while falling, in hopes of breaking the net. He then commands more Razor Leafs to mix the attack, covering Mars' vision. However, Mesprit is still captured, and Dia and True fall into the lake. And lastly is Lake Valor, where Azelf uses its light to blind Saturn and escape. Pearl also takes his chance to flee, having his Pokemon prepared to help Azelf make its way to freedom. Chimler uses Flare Blitz to deal with his foes, but it starts to tire, and with a fully powered gunk shot from Octillery, Pearl's team meets its end. Mr. Rickshaw wakes up and spots the injured Pearl, who reveals that the Pokemon did in fact get captured. Over in Twinleaf Town, everyone's worried about Dia, but Joanna remembers that she put a cell phone in his jacket, calling him and finding out he's all chill. He apologizes for putting her in danger, and that he's a-okay with Mesprit, but he can't return home, as he's inside Team Galactic's airship. In Snowpoint City, Platinum brings the injured Candace and Maylene over to a building, hoping they can seek shelter. Rapidash warms them up, but she regrets not being able to defeat Team Galactic, and a massive roar comes from within the building, and Platinum prepares a Pokeball to catch whatever it is, but she faints, letting the Pokeball roll towards a very distinct silhouette. Returning to Pearl, Mr. Rickshaw begins panicking what to do, but a cloaked man appears, using Rain Dance. The lake begins to fill with water, and this man is revealed to be Crash Awake. He learned about Team Galactic, but since Byron told him late, he wasn't able to make it in time, picking up Pearl and remembering him from the gym battle. He notes that he fought hard by himself, and his inner strength reminds him of someone. At the Pastoria City gym, Pearl wakes up in a panic, apologizing to his Pokemon for letting them get injured. Crash Awake is cleaning the gym and singing his theme song, and Pearl thanks him for his rescue. Wake explains that Mr. Rickshaw's in the storage room, fixing his bike, and outside is Quagsire and Floatzel, who are using Rain Dance to fill the lake. On the topic of Floatzel, his Floatzel is super speedy, which would work perfect for Pearl's team. However, he's not just going to give him his Pokemon. Instead, they're going to go catch a wild one on Route 213. Pearl tries his best to catch one, but they struggle too much, so they instead go for a Weasel. But this Pokemon's putting up just as much of a fight as the others. Wake explains that since its home got affected by the bomb, they're angry at humans for what they've done. And of course, since they're wild Pokemon, they don't know about evil groups and whatnot. Pearl wants to blame himself for his mistake, but Crash Awake cheers him up, reminding him that when things go bad, sometimes you just gotta laugh it off. The next morning, Pearl's gonna have to catch up with Team Galactic, but in the meantime, Wake offers him some training. But whilst these guys are just happily training, over in the Galactic building in Veilstone, Cyrus asks the scientists to get ready to create the red chains. Pearl continues through his training. Despite how tired and exhausted he is, he finally succeeds in catching the Weasel. Having a Weasel of his own reminds him of Paka and Yuji, and how they called him and Dia their apprentices, so he should get as strong as them with a Weasel of his own, nicknaming his new teammate Zella. But the Pokemon isn't going to work with him just because he caught it. Instead, he's going to have to work hard to bond with it. And that's not all, he's going to need 2 more Pokemon so he can have a full team of 6, and he only has till the end of the night. Although the road ahead isn't easy, Wake's sure Pearl can handle it. Heading back to Veilstone once again, the admins all arrive and Cyrus compliments them on a job well done. All the grunts gather in the hall and it's time for Cyrus to make his speech, which to summarize goes like this. Everything in the world is imperfect and he doesn't like that, so he and everyone here are going to make it perfect. With the use of the legendary guardians, they'll forge the red chains, then split up. Some of them will go to Mount Coronet whilst others stay here. However, they'll all be together in their hearts. Bro's really on some Kingdom Hearts type of friendship right now. As for Pearl, morning's rolled around and he's now got 6 Pokemon, so he can head off to Team Galactic. Crash Awake asks him if he wants a present or if he succeeds, and Pearl does, deciding he wants a theme song just like his. Suddenly, Joanna and the others arrive, giving him True and Kit and informing him of Dia's location. So what happened with Dia is whilst True was using Razor Leaf, he sent out Kit in order to break the net. However, it failed, leading to both Pokemon falling in the lake, creating 2 splashes, and having him getting dragged into the ship. With this new information, Pearl prepares to head to Veilstone Sea, equipped with his new bike. Wake comments that he taught Pearl everything he could in a night, and if he believes in Dia, he'll also be fine too. When they spoke on the phone, Dia reminded his mother of Pro Team Omega and their story. And as you can see by his team members, Pro Team Omega is actually based on Red's team. In the show, there were bad guys. Now these bad guys exist in real life, and they're doing bad things, so he has to stop them. Pearl reaches Veilstone Sea and is swarmed with grunts, so he sends out Zella, but it attacks him. However, it also attacks the grunts. He then sends out his Diggler to confuse everyone and finish it off with his Tauros, Torla. Although new teammates, they've bonded together. And even with a few stray enemies, he has his OG squad ready to assist him too. And with these 6 Pokemon by his side, this is Pearl's new team. Alright, that's enough of the boys. Let's check in on Platinum, who awakens in a Pokemon Center with Candace and Maylene, who both thank her for saving their lives. Platinum's confused about how they made it here, since she stopped off at what looked like an ancient temple, which they realized was Snowpoint Temple. Candace doesn't know much about the temple herself, but either way, they're all safe and sound, and they need a new strategy to deal with the enemy. So Candace calls Byron, telling him that they need backup that can train them. Byron's got a lot of work to prepare, and Roark's the same as the others, so he won't be much help, leaving only one trainer he knows that can help them, but he'd rather not ask him. With no other choice, he rings a guy, but no answer comes through due to a power outage. In Vicina region's Sunny Shore City, the father and daughter duo from Floraroma Town have come to fix the issue, realizing that all the electricity has been going to one area, this being the Sunny Shore Gym. They head over there to speak with its leader, who's been searching for a serious challenge, and he even made a super interesting gym puzzle, hence the blackout. The father shuts off the power drainer, and the mysterious leader finally answers his phone, learning that something interesting is about to go down. Heading back over to Veilstone, Team Galactic have finally begun extracting the chains from the Lake Guardians. They're going to be needing 2 chains, one for the time controller Dialga, and the other for the space controller Palkia. And with both of these Pokemon under his control, a new universe will be born. Dia then exits the ship, preparing to make his move. As for the girls, they await for their training coach, the Sunny Shore City gym leader Volkner. In other words, the strongest gym leader in the region. Volkner is here on the impression that he's going to be fighting someone strong, but in actuality, he's here as a teacher. So as punishment, he sends out his Raichu to attack the others, preparing to leave. After all, he only came here to defeat a strong foe. Platinum, however, isn't going to let him leave, promising him a tough battle. Vulcan is entertained by this idea, sending out his Elekid, whilst Platinum picks Lopunny. However, her Pokemon easily gets outmaneuvered and hit hard by Focus Punch. Vulcan asks if her foe had agile footwork, which they did, being able to attack from anywhere with Shadow Sneak, demonstrating by catching Elekid off guard and defeating it. Next up is Raichu, and Platinum picks out Empoleon. Raichu sets up a light screen, and Platinum reveals that Jupiter's defense was just as good by trapping them in the mud. Raichu heals his injuries with a Citrus Berry, and finishes off Empoleon with a Thunderbolt. Volkner then wants to know about power, sending out his Electivire. Platinum picks out Rapidash, mentioning Tangro's immense power and reach, but Volkner wants specifics, demonstrating his Thunder Punch and wondering if it matches him. But Platinum reveals it doesn't. Instead, it far surpasses him, as her Rapidash withstood the attack. But that's not all the fun facts she has, as Platinum also heard that leaders from Sunny Shore City too. Vulcan is interested in this Team Galactic, but for now, Platinum is more interesting. Although she lost her battle, she has a good read on her opponent's characteristics, which is something she can agree with. Although she couldn't win, she still learned from the experience, which is something Vulcan vibes with. So from now on, he's going to keep teaching them. And they're going to be doing this by fighting until she can make one of his Pokemon faint. And if she can, she'll receive the Beacon Badge. After that, it will be Candace and Maylene's turn. Now we head back to Pearl, who's continuing to tear through Team Galactic, but now he's fallen back into a cave in order to come up with a better plan. He's then suddenly reunited with the Unknown from Selassian Town, but not only that, the other Unknown are here too. They offer Pearl their help by rushing Team Galactic and giving him the chance to enter Veilstone. Since the main entrance is super busy, he's gonna enter through the secret passage, this being the same passage that the Grunt used back when he fought Dia. Entering the Lost and Found building and finding said passage, he gives Chatler True and Kit's Pokeballs and asks him to go find Dia whilst he storms the place. But time is ticking, and Cyrus has already completed one red chain. He hears from his commanders that someone's breaking in, but Cyrus tells him not to worry and instead head for Spear Pillar on Mount Coronet. Everything's seeming chill so far, but a wall gets blasted, and it's time we remember one very important character we haven't seen in a while, being the overpowered researcher of Sinnoh, Cynthia, beginning a battle between two powerhouses. Also inside the Veilstone building, Dia takes down a Grunt and disguises himself as one of the team's members, successfully blending into the crowd. But he's not the only one making moves, as Platinum also heads their direction, successfully managing to get a win on Volkner. She said her goodbyes to her friends and they promised to defeat Team Galactic in the future as a new and improved, not dressed appropriately for the weather, girl trio. Outside the building, the Unknown is still causing problems, allowing her to sneak in unnoticed. Back with Dia, the Grunts are starting to split up between 3 rooms, and his indecisiveness gets him discovered. Luckily, he manages to escape by stepping on a teleportation panel, trying them all out and getting a chance meeting with Chatler, who gives him back his team members. But in this joy, there's also trouble, as the same annoying Grunt is back again, revealing the legendary lake Pokemon are hidden inside the lab. So he's gonna stop Dia here and now. Dia then starts hearing some faint beeping in the distance, meaning the others are also here. But this is exactly what the Grunt wants, ever since he found out about the Pokedex. A high-tech device developed by Professor Oak and Rowan, given to new trainers who travel the region and gather information. And we get to see a nice cameo of all of our favorite characters. But enjoy it, cause we're not gonna be seeing some of them for a long time. The Grunt's also done some research on the Destiny-focused battles the Dex holders fight against, such as the evil teams of Team Rocket, Aqua, and Magma. Dia does his best to fight against the Grunt, and although he's amazed by the lore of the Pokedex, it's not what's important right now, as he needs to save the Lake Trio. The Grunt holds him down and Dia commands his Pokemon to focus on the lab instead of the foes, and Dawn gets to work blocking off the others. Pearl and Platinum also hear the beeping and start searching the building for each other. Suddenly in the battle, Dawn begins to glow as he evolves into a Bastiodon, completely blocking the path with Metal Burst and Iron Head. The Pokedex starts getting really loud, so Dia covers the noise with Chatler's chatter, which Qingling gets offended by, forcing it to start using Uproar, creating the worst sound you could probably imagine. In all the chaos, the Grunt accidentally presses the emergency button, covering the area with fog. So when Pearl and Platinum eventually arrive, they can't see anything. The Grunt tries to contact Cyrus on this troubling situation, but he's too busy getting held up by the region's champion. Cynthia's here to put a stop to Cyrus right now, taking down his Honchkrow, but he's not fazed by her threats, outsmarting her and freezing her Spiritomb, and even using Embargo to stop it from recovering with a berry. So Cynthia switches for Milotic, who uses Iron Tail. After what Cyrus did to the ruins in her hometown, she isn't going to simply let him slide. Cyrus explains that the paintings revealed a lot to him, for example Azoth being the willpower Pokemon. Hence why he headed for Lake Valor, so he could crush willpower with his own. Weavile begins stabbing Milotic's tail and Cynthia commands Brian to finish it off. Up next is Gyarados, and Cynthia can tell that this Pokemon's his trump card. Due to its immense speed, all she can do right now is aim to slow it down, but she just can't keep up. The sun then begins shining brightly as morning arises once again, and Cyrus commands his Pokemon to hide within the sun, setting up with Dragon Dance and finishing off with a powerful Giga Impact, taking down Milotic. Things aren't looking good, so it's time for Garchomp to enter the scene. But even with its health, Cyrus is way too strong. However, since her Pokemon wants revenge, it's not going to go down without a fight. Cyrus is then informed that the red chain is ready for creation. Garchomp is proper tweaking out, so Cynthia decides it's time for a little risk, commanding the powerful Dragon-type move Draco Meteor, as literal meteors rain down on Cyrus. The smoke clears and Cyrus is impressed,
wondering if this could truly be considered a Pokemon move. After all, she did drop Meteors on him. But ultimately, this move was used without being mastered, and the price is Garchomp suffering to move. Because of her overconfidence and rashness, Cynthia got too hasty, and now she's proven his point on this world being flawed. With things as they are now, he has no reason to stay here, taking his leave with Twister. Cynthia understands exactly what he's trying to do, so she can't let him complete his goal. Back inside, Pearl and Platinum's senses are getting overwhelmed, but they have to press on, unaware that they're so close to their goals. Pearl has Rayleigh use his X-ray vision to find Azelf, meanwhile Platinum manages to find Uxie. The grunts had enough of this messing around, activating a wall that splits everyone up. Pearl does his best to free the Pokemon from their confinement, and Rayleigh lets him know that the others are here too. However, with the enemy Pokemon being present, they can't easily achieve their goal. The noise begins to quiet down and the trio can now hear each other. In order to save the Pokemon, they have to release them all at the same time. However, with the foes in the way, there's nothing they can currently do. So Dia comes up with the idea to give away their Pokedexes. After all, it will distract the grunt and his Pokemon, allowing them to save the late trio. Although the Dexes are valuable for creating bonds between people and Pokemon, they're already bound together by friendship that will never disappear. And so they raise up their Pokedexes and give them away, but in return manage to free the Lake Trio back to freedom. Cyrus spots the Lake Trio getting free, knowing that there's no way to catch them again. So with no other options, he'll have to make a second red chain through the use of science, rushing off to Spear Pillar. And after an hour, he arrives at his destination. His commanders meet up with him and promise to keep the place protected. But it's not going to be easy for them as attacks fly their way. These attacks being the work of Fantina, Gardenia, and Roark. Cyrus gathers his two chains and begins to create a gate to the other dimension as Dialga and Palkia are summoned. Cynthia searches through the HQ, finding the Sinnoh trio all passed out. She wakes them all up and they explain what happened. However, they had to give away their Dexes. But despite this, she's proud of the three of them, knowing that it was destiny for them to get to this point. Although not as intended, the three are happy to reunite with each other. Cynthia then reveals that she fought against Cyrus, but he managed to escape to Mount Coronet, so they're gonna have to follow him up there. They're finally heading for Mount Coronet, the destination they've been aiming for this whole time, which once again goes with their destiny, as the three believe that they were always meant to do this. Platinum has a gift for Dia from Candace's gym, being a Mamoswine, also showcasing her newly acquired gym badges to the others. She wanted to get Pearl a Pokemon too, but he tells her it's fine. After all, he already has 6 Pokemon. But what he really cares about is the fact she's grown strong enough to defeat gym leaders all by herself. Inside her bag though contains something that she doesn't recognize. However, they finally arrived at Mount Coronet. Up atop Spear Pillar, Cyrus awakens a legendary Pokemon, commanding that they work for him. Meanwhile on the stairs, the gym leaders continue their battle. And as it goes on, they're joined by Crash Awake, Candice, and Maylene, who are all here to put a shift in to save their region. Jupiter's curious how they managed to get here, despite the tons of grunts that are outside. But out of the ground, Byron appears. Him, Roark, and their relative, the Underground Man, are all master miners, and due to their skills, they manage to travel through the Sinnoh Underground, eventually reaching Mount Coronet. Byron still has some more digging to do, so the 6 of them will have to deal with the admins for now, as a massive 3v6 battle occurs, and Byron lends support from underground. Back with Cyrus, he tells the Pokemon his commands, which isn't to work together, but instead to battle each other, with the clash of space and time resulting in a new world. Down below, Byron isn't alone, because Rowan and Berlitz have also joined him, giving off information about how to deal with their legendary Pokemon. Now there's only one person who should be here, but isn't, and that's Volkner. He gets a message about what's going down, and his response is to delete the message and head home. He then gets a funny feeling, spotting the path to the Center Spring, and finding a little distortion in space-time. The others arrive at the bottom of Spear Pillar, where they see the legendary Pokemon causing havoc. Well, everyone apart from Pearl, since he's too busy getting distorted by space. Down on the ground, the scientists are reading the numbers, knowing that in the past Kyogre and Groudon fought each other due to instinct. However here, these two Pokemon are battling due to being forced to. The gym leaders successfully put away both Mars and Saturn, leaving only Jupiter left. And by working together, Candice and Maylene exact their revenge, coming out on top. With the gym leaders victorious, all they have to do is stop Cyrus. But due to time being messed up, he does what Dio does, making them go up the stairs in a loop. Byron brings them all underground, and Rowan explains that they can't get close due to the distortions. However, if they can find another route, that can work. Everything's going really bad, but for Cyrus, this is his dream, as he starts crying tears of blood. Suddenly though, the gym leaders appear from beneath the ground, and the Pokemon get right to work at breaking the chain. Cyrus calls out his own team in order to stop them, but the gym leaders press on, eventually succeeding in breaking the chain, returning all the numbers back to normal. Also they fought, because they were too late and the distortions continue to expand, The two Pokemon continue fighting against each other, and Cyrus wants the gym leader's blood on his hands. Down below, Diamond tries to help out Pearl, but everything keeps looping around. Cynthia's already weakened from her battle with Cyrus, and these distortions aren't making things any better. They use Garchomp to get to the top of Spear Pillar, but get split up by a Pokemon's blast. Diamond and Pearl meet up with the legendaries and feel overwhelmed. However, now that they're here, they won't back down, so Dia sends out Moo to hold off the legends. Back on the stairs, Jupiter is met by a familiar ally. They mention that their leg is permanently injured from an ice attack they received, and Jupiter gives them a brace. And this person's revealed to be Surd, a secret member of Team Galactic. Moo rushes into battle, attacking both Dialga and Palkia and sending them flying. Palkia retaliates by using Spatial Rend, and Pearl joins into the battle too, using his combo attack to force the two Pokemon into each other. Dia then finishes off with an Ice-type move, freezing the Pokemon over. So Dialga reverses time. Despite these hack level abilities, Diamond and Pearl won't give up. Right now they only have two options, either defeat the Pokemon or catch them. As the duo battle it out, Platinum and Cynthia find the other gym leaders. The leaders have some gifts for Platinum, with Candace giving a Frostlass, Gardenia giving a Cherrim, and Maylene giving a Pachirisu from Volkner. Platinum thanks them all for their help, but the legendary Pokemon start interfering, blasting them and stealing Platinum's new Pokeballs. As they dodge, Cynthia drops the ancient scroll, and Platinum's able to read its text. Cynthia mentions that it's been passed down for generations, and was hoping that it would be able to help them find out about Dialga and Palkia, so Platinum gets to work trying to decipher it. Cynthia wants to know where Cyrus is, after all he's the one who called upon the legends. Meanwhile, Platinum figures out the moves that the Pokemon are using, being Roar of Time and Spatial Rend. Ever since they arrived, the legends have been focusing on them instead of each other, which could mean they're no longer fighting. However, Cyrus's voice echoes around the area, as he reveals that the new core will engulf everything. Smoke begins to fill the area, and Diamond and Pearl get attacked from within it, as Cyrus appears, looking pretty cold might I add. On the stairs, Surd reveals that Jupiter was in fact stronger than the gym leaders, and she only lost because of the distortions. Jupiter introduces her to the other admins, and Surd explains that she was working undercover at Team Rocket, whilst they were finding Pokemon related to stars. And in her time, she found one that surpassed them all, Deoxys. Giovanni was trying to catch his Pokemon, so she tagged along as a spy, even learning about Archie and helping him cause trouble. However, her actions got stopped by the Pokédex holders, forcing her to go into hiding. Now for the big stuff. She had attempted to catch the fleeing Deoxys with the use of her other new Pokemon, Darkrai. However, it clashed with Mewtwo and ended up causing a petrification effect. She wanted to continue searching for Deoxys, so to stand in for her at Team Galactic, she synchronized herself with one of the Grunts, who would act as a sort of alter ego for her this whole time. As for Deoxys, she was unable to catch it due to Mewtwo not getting petrified and forcing her away. So with her life barely intact, she came back to Sinnoh, but she never expected to be able to steal the Pokédexes. This lore dump was cool to know, but it also ended up getting overheard by Riley, who's been tracking down Surd and her special grunt for a while, so they engage in battle. Back with the final battle, Cyrus reveals that nothing can stop his plan, as space-time gets shifted to an insane level. At Sinnoh's police station, the scientists from earlier are getting interrogated by the international police, namely Looker, who leaves his Krogunk to watch over them. Dr. Footsteps leaves the station, but outside he finds himself now at Spear Pillar, and we see all across the Sinnoh region people getting shifted around. Also, we get a small cameo from Bibi, the girl who controls the Sinnoh storage system, and her friend Haley, the owner of the Pokemon Ranch. Cyrus tells the others that if they're feeling fear, then it's proof that they're incomplete. Emotions can be controlled through willpower, and if you've got knowledge, you can increase your willpower. That is the balance that he seeks. However, right now, the world is lacking, so we must start everything from scratch. Everything begins flowing upwards, including the knocked out gym leaders. The gang get to work in saving them, but no matter what they do, they can't stop themselves from getting pulled. Dia tries to close up the hole of Moo's blizzard, but to no effect, so he instead aims to fill up the hole himself. But as he does, something pops out from Platinum's bag, as Regigigas has entered the scene, and Platinum mentions this was what was inside her bag. Pearl wonders if it's on their team, and someone replies revealing that it is, as its footsteps reveal that it's been waiting for orders, and it will fight for Sinnoh and give its all. This person being Dr. Footsteps, who stumbled onto the final battle. Regigigas rushes straight into things, manhandling both legendaries. Cyrus knocks Dia off the Pokemon, failing to understand why they continue to get in his way. But Dia understands Cyrus. He's a slow guy, especially compared to Pearl. An hour to him can feel short, but to Pearl can feel long. But at the end of the day, it's still the same hour, and that's how he experienced time. On their journey, they went to many places and met many people, realizing how big the world really was, allowing him to experience space. However, Cyrus doesn't find his answer compelling, which is why he wants to make a new slate. But Dia tells him that it's not up to him to decide whether the time he spent with his friends was a waste, and he has no right to take those things away from people. And it's not only Dia who thinks this, as Dialga and Palkia stop fighting. Cyrus can't give up now, using his last chain to bind both Pokemon, and not only that, attacking Dia with the chain directly. Platinum and Pearl rush to his side, proud of his actions, and Platinum's finally deciphered the scroll. The two legendary Pokemon are counterparts, and they're perfectly balanced. However, since Cyrus only has one red chain, he can't truly control them. So when this imbalance shows, it's their chance to attack. Pearl and Diamond prepare their team, and when the signal arises, they strike with everything they have, breaking the chains and freeing the Pokemon. Cyrus begins to get blown into the sky, witnessing Diamond's emotion, Pearl's willpower, and now Platinum's knowledge, understanding that even though incomplete, they work together to stop him. The hole in the sky fades away, along with the distortions, and Cyrus is alive but injured. Dialga and Palkia have also calmed down, so everything is a mission success. And whilst they're here, it's time for Platinum to collect the materials for her crest, and with some help, she successfully manages to complete her goal. Now there's only one thing left to do, and that's save Paka and Yuji. Although she never met them, they fought hard for her, so she won't rest until they can get saved. Since Cyrus is down for the count, they can't ask him for a while, so their best bet is to take everyone to the hospital. As the gang head home, one of Team Galactic's scientists watches Regigigas, wanting to have it for himself. However, right now, he needs to focus on the hole in the sky, taking its reading and laughing to himself. Cyrus was foolish enough to believe that it would create a new world, but the truth is, it's something else entirely. But his excitement gets him spotted by Dia, and when he tries to flee, Byron and the others block his path. They trap him and steal his device, but he reveals this was a huge mistake, as a tentacle rips out from the hole, grabbing Dialga, Palkia, and Cyrus, bringing all three of them into the hole. The one behind this attack shows his face, before flying away. The scientist asks Platinum if she knows about the other side of the world, and if she doesn't, she better learn it quick, revealing himself to be Charon and escaping quickly. Kid tries to catch him but misses, however he did manage to steal a notebook. Back over with Volkner, he calls Flint as he stares into the hole, saying that he's excited. After all, he can sense something powerful from within it. So Flint asks to join him in investigating, asking his buddy to meet him at the battle zone. 2 weeks fly by and we see Professor Yanase heading back to her home in the Sinnoh region. But more importantly, she's equipped with her family crest, revealing herself to also be from the Berlitz family and also Platinum's mother. She speaks to her daughter on the phone, having sent her some documents to find her bodyguards, who have been dragged to the Distortion World, which will be Platinum's next destination, and bringing a very foreshadowy ending to the Diamond and Pearl arc. Jeez, this arc was long as hell, but I'm glad it's done and over with. As you can probably guess, our next journey is going to be in the Sinnoh region again, as the gang continue their journey in the Platinum arc, which will resolve the storyline. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe for more Pokemon manga content. With all that said and done, I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.